Before we begin, let yourself settle deeply into stillness. Close your eyes. Let the room fall away. There's nothing you need to do right now, nothing at all. Let your body become heavy and soft. Notice the points of contact between you and the surface beneath you. Your back, your shoulders, your head cradled in the pillow. Feel how each breath you take arrives without effort, like a tide brushing the shore. You've done enough today. This is your moment to rest, to drift, to wonder. And as your thoughts slow and your body unwinds, we begin our quiet journey inward to follow a single breath through your lungs, your blood and your brain. A journey that begins with stillness. There is a moment, just before each breath begins, that passes unnoticed in waking life. A moment of absolute quiet within the body. A pause between motion and stillness, between need and fulfillment. It's not just the absence of breath, it's something more delicate, a kind of expectancy. Your body waits, not with tension but with patience. The world does not demand breath from you, rather it invites you, and your body, wise and practiced, accepts the invitation again and again, without thought. In this stillness, the diaphragm prepares. This dome-shaped muscle beneath your lungs is often forgotten, yet it is the quiet conductor of your entire breathing orchestra. With a slow, graceful contraction, it flattens downward, creating a subtle vacuum in the chest. That small shift in pressure, invisible and effortless, is enough to pull air inward. You don't command it, it simply happens. Your body knows. Air enters through your nose or mouth depending on how you're resting. If you breathe through your nose, tiny hairs called cilia line the passages, filtering dust and particles, moistening and warming the air as it travels inward. These passageways are more than simple tunnels, they're guardians. They condition every breath so that by the time it reaches the lungs it is close to body temperature, clean and ready for absorption. As you inhale, the breath moves through the pharynx and into the larynx, gently flowing into the trachea, the windpipe. The trachea splits into two bronchi, each leading to a lung. Like an ancient tree turning inward, each bronchus branches into smaller and smaller tubes called bronchioles, narrowing with every division. This quiet forest of airways eventually ends in the alveoli, tiny air sacs nestled deep within the lungs. There are hundreds of millions of them, and they're astonishingly small. Each is wrapped in a delicate web of capillaries, where the breath, now fully arrived, meets the bloodstream. Inside each alveolus, oxygen diffuses gently across a thin membrane into your blood. It's not a rush, it's a quiet transfer, guided by simple gradients. Where oxygen is abundant in the lungs and scarce in the blood, the molecules move naturally, like heat flowing from a warm hand into cool water. Red blood cells passing by in the capillaries carry hemoglobin, proteins designed specifically to bind to oxygen. They're not hasty, they're precise. Each hemoglobin molecule can carry 4 oxygen atoms, and as the cells pass by the alveoli, they load their precious cargo, almost like passengers stepping onto a train. At the same time, carbon dioxide produced by your cells as they convert fuel into energy is handed off in return. It leaves the blood and enters the alveoli to be exhaled. This trade is constant, continuous, and profoundly vital. Every breath is a quiet exchange, oxygen in, carbon dioxide out, a balancing act that you never have to think about. This process happens with astonishing efficiency. In the time it takes to inhale and exhale, trillions of oxygen molecules move into your blood, and nearly as many carbon dioxide molecules are released. Yet it feels like nothing more than a breath, effortless, gentle, familiar. The oxygen-rich blood now begins its journey away from the lungs. It travels through the pulmonary veins into the left atrium of the heart. With the next heartbeat, the atrium contracts, sending the blood into the left ventricle. And then, with a single strong contraction, the left ventricle pumps the oxygenated blood out through the aorta, the largest artery in the body. From here, the breath travels outward, riding the bloodstream like a silent river, reaching every organ, every tissue, every cell. Your brain, always active, always alert, receives a generous portion of this oxygen-rich blood. Though it weighs only about 2% of your body, the brain consumes nearly 20% of the oxygen you breathe. It is a demanding, delicate structure, and oxygen is its most sacred resource. Neurons, the cells responsible for thought, memory, movement, and sensation, depend on a constant supply. They don't store energy the way muscles do. They need the breath moment by moment without interruption. When oxygen reaches the brain, it enters capillaries that thread through every fold of your cerebral cortex. It diffuses again, this time into the interstitial fluid that surrounds neurons, and finally into the cells themselves. Within each neuron, the oxygen is used by mitochondria, the tiny powerhouses of the cell, to create ATP, the molecule that fuels all cellular activity. Without oxygen, this process slows, then stops. With oxygen, it flows gracefully. Neurons fire, thoughts form, dreams unfold. Even now, as you lie still and relaxed, your brain is working. Perhaps not on tasks or worries, but on integration, on memory, on healing. Your breath sustains that work, providing the fuel for gentle mental activity, for imagination, for rest. And so this single breath, which began with the soft contraction of the diaphragm, has already touched countless parts of you. It has moved through warm airways, exchanged gases in microscopic sacs, been swept into the bloodstream, carried into the brain, and offered its gift of energy to the quiet engine of your mind. But the journey isn't complete until the breath returns. With your next exhale, the process reverses. The diaphragm rises, the rib cage relaxes. Carbon dioxide, now abundant in the blood, travels back to the lungs and is expelled. The body lets go, releasing what is no longer needed. It is not waste, it is part of the cycle. A soft completion of a loop, one moment of transformation returning to the air. And in that release, a new stillness is born. There is something deeply comforting about the cycle of breath. It is the most ancient rhythm in your life. From the moment you were born, your body has known how to do this. And even in sleep, even in silence, even in stress, your breath continues. It does not abandon you. It does not ask questions. It simply supports you. The systems that control this process are mostly automatic. They are governed by the brainstem, especially the medulla oblongata, which monitors levels of carbon dioxide in the blood. When those levels rise, it signals the body to inhale again. It's a loop of quiet feedback, keeping you in balance. Even if you never think of it, your breath thinks of you. And yet, unlike the beating of your heart or the digestion of food, your breath is also voluntary. You can slow it, hold it, deepen it. It is the one bridge you have between the unconscious and the conscious, between body and mind, between now and forever. This breath right now is enough. There is no rush, no urgency, only the soft unfolding of a process older than speech, older than memory, older than thought. When you bring awareness to your breath, you enter a quiet temple within yourself. You become both observer and participant. And in this gentle attention, your breath can begin to heal, to soften, to guide. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, this breath will carry you there, not like a ship sails across waves, but like a feather drifts on air, gently, steadily, effortlessly. As you inhale, allow yourself to receive. As you exhale, allow yourself to release. With each breath, let go of one more thread of tension. With each breath, return more fully to yourself. The breath you are taking right now was once carried by trees, by oceans, by ancestors. It has travelled through ancient forests, through mountain air, through the lungs of birds and animals and children. It is not just air, it is continuity, it is memory, it is life. And so the story begins, with a single breath rising in stillness, becoming motion, becoming life, becoming you. The breath you just took has already passed through your mouth or nose into your throat, down your trachea, and now enters the vast, quiet cathedral of your lungs. This is not an empty chamber. It is a forest, a living, branching labyrinth that grows inward rather than outward. And as you sink deeper into rest, your breath sinks deeper into this inner forest, flowing with grace and ease. The lungs are not identical. The right lung is broader, divided into 3 lobes. The left, narrower and tucked beside the heart, has 2, nestled safely within your rib cage. They are soft and spongy, not hollow like balloons, but dense with intricate passageways. Each breath you draw in fills these passageways like a river pouring into countless tributaries. The trachea splits into 2 main bronchi, one for each lung, These bronchi divide again and again, bronchi into bronchioles, bronchioles into smaller bronchioles, until finally they end in alveoli, the tiny air sacs where the breath meets blood. There are nearly 500 million alveoli in your lungs. If you could stretch them out flat, their total surface area would cover a tennis court. Yet they all fit inside your chest, folded, coiled and ready. Every alveolus is surrounded by a delicate mesh of capillaries, and this is where the real magic of breath happens. This is where the air becomes part of you. The air you inhale doesn't just fill a void, it's welcomed, it's drawn in by negative pressure created by your diaphragm's gentle downward pull. Your lungs do not suck air in, they are opened for it, much like a flower opens for rain. It is not a forceful act, it's one of trust, of readiness, of rhythm. Every breath is a wave, rising in, falling out, not forced but flowing. The lungs know this rhythm intimately, even when your thoughts are far away. As the air enters the alveoli, the oxygen molecules pass through the thin epithelial walls into the surrounding capillaries. These capillaries are so small that red blood cells must squeeze through single file. In this tight passage, oxygen molecules bind to hemoglobin within each red blood cell. It's a bond formed in silence, shaped by molecular affinity. No energy is spent, it simply happens, like dew forming on morning grass. This meeting of air and blood is ancient. It is one of the oldest relationships in the story of life on Earth. Long before we breathed with lungs, primitive aquatic creatures exchanged gases through skin and gills. Over eons, life adapted to air, to land, to lungs. The alveoli are the evolutionary result of millennia of refinement. They are your living connection to the world around you, drawing in the atmosphere and turning it into life. The breath you just took may contain molecules that were once breathed by whales surfacing in the ocean, by trees releasing oxygen during photosynthesis, by someone across the world exhaling on a winter morning. Oxygen is not static, it moves, recycles, dances between beings. In this sense, breath is memory. It is shared, it belongs to no one and to everyone. Inside the lungs, carbon dioxide, the waste product of cellular metabolism, takes the place of oxygen. It moves in the opposite direction out of the blood across the alveolar membrane and into the breath that will be exhaled. Carbon dioxide is often misunderstood. It is not simply a waste gas to be discarded. It plays a vital role in maintaining the balance of pH in your blood. It regulates your respiratory rate. It communicates with your nervous system, subtly shaping how fast and how deep you breathe. When carbon dioxide builds up, sensors in the brainstem, specifically in the medulla oblongata, detect this change and signal your body to take another breath. In fact, it's not a lack of oxygen that makes you feel the urge to breathe, but the accumulation of carbon dioxide. This feedback loop keeps you in balance without needing your awareness. Even in sleep, even in dreams, this mechanism continues, gentle, precise and protective. As you lie here still and quiet, your lungs are anything but idle. They are in constant motion. With every breath, your ribcage expands slightly. Your diaphragm lowers, your lungs stretch and fill, then fall and rest. It's a motion so natural, so seamless, that you rarely notice it. But right now, as you listen and observe, you begin to feel its presence. The lungs rise like tides, the breath flows like wind. The rhythm is your own, but it is also universal. This motion massages the organs around it. The gentle expansion of the lungs presses lightly on the heart, liver and stomach, encouraging fluid movement and circulation. This subtle internal massage is one reason why deep breathing brings calm, not only because of what you're inhaling or exhaling, but because of how the breath physically moves through the body. It's a motion that soothes from the inside out. Consider how quietly your lungs adapt to different needs. If you climb a hill, they expand their capacity. If you sleep deeply, they slow their pace. If you sigh, they release tension. If you laugh, they ripple with joy. The lungs respond not only to biology, but to emotion. They are shaped by the state of your mind, and in turn they shape the state of your mind. This is why breath is so central in meditation, in sleep, in healing. It is the bridge between your outer world and your inner landscape. Each breath you take is shared between two systems, the respiratory and the circulatory. The lungs bring oxygen into the bloodstream and the heart distributes it. This partnership is seamless. Oxygenated blood travels from the lungs through the pulmonary veins into the heart, then is pumped out to the rest of the body. It's a choreography so well rehearsed that it happens billions of times in your life without error, without pause. And yet, the lungs themselves are tender. They are sensitive to the world. The air you breathe matters. Pollutants, allergens, and smoke can irritate the delicate alveoli. But your body has defenses. Mucus traps particles. Cilia, a layer of tiny hair-like structures, sweep debris upward toward the throat, where it can be swallowed or expelled. Your lungs do not passively accept the air. They filter it, cleanse it, protect you. Still, their vulnerability is part of their power. Because they are so exposed, they remind you of your connection to the world. Every breath is an interaction, a merging. You are never entirely separate from your environment. You are always in exchange. You are always part of a greater rhythm. Think of your lungs not just as organs, but as ocean caves. Each breath flows into their depths and out again like tides. In fact, the word spirit comes from the Latin spiritus, meaning both breath and life. Across cultures and centuries, breath has been associated with presence, with soul, with vitality. Even science, in all its precision, cannot remove the quiet reverence that surrounds a single inhale. And so here you are, in the temple of your lungs. Your breath moves in and out, rising and falling, giving and receiving. And beneath the calm motion, beneath the quiet transfer of gases, something more subtle is happening. The breath is beginning to influence your nervous system. With each slow, steady breath, your parasympathetic nervous system becomes more active. This is the system of rest and recovery. Your heart rate slows, your blood pressure eases, muscles soften, digestion resumes, cortisol levels drop, your body shifts into a state of healing, of trust, of sleep. You may not feel the change immediately, but it is happening, like a gentle wave rising through your spine and nerves. Your body is returning to equilibrium. This is the power of the lungs, not only to keep you alive, but to bring you peace. There is no need to force this process. The breath knows the way. The lungs do not need instruction. They need only permission. So give yourself that permission now, to breathe, to rest, to feel. As your breath continues to flow, your awareness begins to drift, deeper into the lungs, into the alveoli, into the capillaries, into the bloodstream. Soon we will follow the oxygen carried within into the blood, the heart, and the brain. We will see how your breath becomes thought, memory, sensation, but for now, simply remain in the lungs. Let them cradle your breath like waves cradling the moonlight. You are held, you are whole, and the breath always is with you. The breath you inhaled just moments ago has now dissolved into your blood. Like ink spreading into water, oxygen has left the quiet alveoli of your lungs and slipped across the paper-thin membranes into the flowing current of your circulatory system. And now your body begins one of the most elegant, silent journeys in nature, a journey of transformation and transport. Within the maze of capillaries surrounding your lungs, oxygen molecules bind gently to hemoglobin, the iron-rich protein inside red blood cells. This bond is swift, efficient, and incredibly loyal. Each red blood cell carries nearly 1 billion oxygen molecules at a time. These cells are shaped like flattened discs, flexible, soft, smooth. They bend and twist to pass through the narrowest vessels, barely wider than the cells themselves. As the oxygen binds, the blood brightens, its deep maroon turning into a vibrant crimson, and begins its journey away from the lungs. The route leads first to the pulmonary veins, then into the left atrium of the heart. The heart, your tireless companion, receives this oxygen-rich blood with rhythmic gratitude. It doesn't hesitate. With every beat, it coordinates a powerful contraction, pushing the blood through the left ventricle and into the aorta, the largest artery in your body. From here, the oxygen begins its outward migration, branching again and again into an intricate map of arteries, arterioles, and capillaries, reaching toward every cell. This isn't just transportation, it's delivery. Oxygen is a message, a gift, a quiet agreement that life continues. Your organs wait in perfect trust. The brain receives its supply first, always prioritized. Then the muscles, the gut, the skin, the fingertips, the toes. Every inch of you, no matter how distant from your lungs, receives this breath, this offering. You may be lying still, but within you, this movement never stops. At the cellular level, the oxygen completes its task. It enters each cell and slips into the mitochondria, the tiny powerhouses that fuel your existence. Here, oxygen plays its essential role in cellular respiration, the process by which nutrients are converted into adenosine triphosphate or ATP. This is the energy your body uses for everything: thinking, blinking, healing, dreaming. Oxygen allows these microscopic engines to run clean and efficient. Without it, the machinery of life stalls. But just as important as oxygen's arrival is the collection of what it leaves behind. The carbon dioxide produced by cellular metabolism dissolves into the blood, now darkening it once more, signaling that it's time to return. The blood doesn't resist, it turns around and begins the journey home. Veins guide it gently, the flow steadied by the pulsing squeeze of nearby muscles and the presence of valves that prevent backflow. It's a slower rhythm now, a descent rather than an ascent. As this deoxygenated blood arrives at the heart, it enters the right atrium, is passed to the right ventricle, and from there it's sent to the lungs once again. There, it will exchange carbon dioxide for oxygen, continuing the loop. This closed, continuous circuit of the heart and lungs is called pulmonary circulation, and it is one of the most vital dances in your body. From inhale to exhale, from oxygenation to cellular respiration, from arteries to veins, it is all seamless, all fluid, all part of one great current flowing through you. Pause for a moment and consider what this means. Within minutes, your entire blood volume, roughly 5 litres, is circulated through your body and returned to the lungs. Every drop is recharged with oxygen, every cell replenished, and all of this happens automatically without a single command from you. It is a gift of design, an inheritance of evolution, a miracle of nature repeating itself with every heartbeat. But the bloodstream doesn't only carry gases, it is also a delivery service for nutrients, hormones, heat, and immune cells. It distributes messages in chemical form, tiny molecules that travel from endocrine glands to distant tissues, whispering instructions: rest now, repair now, prepare now. Blood carries glucose from your food, lipids from your stores, proteins for rebuilding, minerals for balance. It is not just a river of life, it is a web of communication, a medium of unity. This flow also carries emotional signatures. Though emotions are generated in the brain, they ripple through the body by means of hormones. A moment of fear sends adrenaline rushing into the bloodstream, quickening the heart and breath. A moment of love releases oxytocin, bathing the body in warmth and trust. A long sigh, a slow breath, can tip the balance toward calm, signaling safety to your brainstem. Your bloodstream is not only a physical stream, it is a river of experience shaped by thought and feeling alike. And though you are lying still, perhaps with your eyes closed, this river keeps moving. It flows past your sternum, your ribs, your spine, through the long highways of your legs, up into the arches of your feet, into your arms and fingertips, into your neck and cheeks and scalp. It touches everything. You are never not connected. There is no part of you left behind. Your breath travels further than you think, becoming part of your blood, part of your movement, part of your presence. In this way, breath becomes more than an act of breathing. It becomes a state. When oxygen moves well through you, your thoughts feel clearer, your muscles more relaxed, your healing more complete. Blood oxygen levels are not just numbers on a screen. They are reflections of how well you are being met by the world around you, how well your body is being supported, and how gently you are supporting it in return. There is also a rhythm to all of this, a synchronicity. Your breath and your blood move in waves, but they are not disconnected. They sync up. This coupling, called cardiorespiratory coupling, ensures that oxygen arrives exactly when it's needed. Inhale, the heart rate speeds up slightly. Exhale, it slows down. This is known as respiratory sinus arrhythmia, and it is a healthy sign. It means your body is listening to itself, to its cycles, to the moment. Athletes train for this. Meditators settle into it. Newborns are born with it. And you, whether awake or asleep, carry this rhythm within you. You are always breathing. You are always circulating. You are always becoming. Even now, as your mind floats through this narrative, your blood flows quietly below, steady as a river at night. It's easy to forget, but right now, tens of millions of cells are being touched by this breath, now riding through you in liquid form. They are being healed, energized, comforted. And soon we will follow this current further into the brain, where the breath becomes thought, emotion and memory. We will see how oxygen nourishes awareness, how blood shapes consciousness. But for now, let your attention drift gently with the blood itself, not racing, not rushing, just flowing softly. You are being carried, you are being sustained, and your breath, now a current of red and gold, moves within you unseen but never unfelt. As oxygen-rich blood flows steadily through the winding corridors of your brain, something remarkable happens. This is not a passive delivery, it is an active exchange, a quiet collaboration between your body's inner breath and the spark of thought. The oxygen molecules exit the blood not in a chaotic rush but in a highly coordinated transfer. They slip from the hemoglobin like dancers finishing a set, moving from the bloodstream into the tissue, drifting into the neurons and glial cells that support the operations of your mind. Your brain, though only about 2% of your body's weight, uses more than 20% of its oxygen. This small, soft organ is a furnace of thought, emotion, memory and awareness, and oxygen is its constant fuel. Without it, the neural circuits that encode language, hold your memories and construct your sense of self would fall silent within moments. It is astonishing to think that every word you've ever spoken, every image your mind recalls, every decision and every dream all depend on the simple rhythmic gift of breath. Within the microscopic landscape of your brain, neurons are constantly firing. Each signal is an electrical impulse, a tiny spark that jumps from cell to cell across narrow synaptic gaps. But these electrical flashes are costly. They require energy in the form of ATP, adenosine triphosphate, produced by mitochondria that depend on oxygen to function. Without oxygen, those energy factories slow, stumble, and then stop. Neurons are resilient, but they are also incredibly oxygen sensitive. A few minutes without fresh delivery and they begin to fade. The blood vessels serving your brain are adapted to this constant demand. Tiny capillaries, sometimes just wide enough for a single red blood cell to pass through at a time, reach deep into every fold and crease of your brain's grey matter. This vast vascular network is like a delicate irrigation system, keeping the landscape fertile and alive. And the communication between neurons and vessels is not one-sided. As areas of your brain become more active, like when you think deeply, remember a face or imagine a distant place, those regions signal for more oxygen. Blood flow increases, temporarily boosting delivery to that specific region. It's as if your breath is following your attention. Where your mind goes, your oxygen follows. This intimate bond between breath and brain also extends into your emotions. Certain areas like the amygdala, hippocampus and prefrontal cortex are deeply involved in fear, memory and decision-making. When you are calm and safe, the balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide in your blood remains steady, supporting clear thought and emotional regulation. But when anxiety or panic arises, your breathing may become shallow or rapid, upsetting that balance. This in turn affects the brain's chemistry and activity, intensifying your emotional response, a loop of breath and mind tightly interwoven. Breathing slowly, deeply and consciously isn't just a relaxation technique, it's a direct way to modulate your brain's chemistry. Inhaling deeply brings in more oxygen, while exhaling fully releases more carbon dioxide. That simple shift can calm your nervous system, lower your heart rate, and ease mental tension. It's a small act, repeated thousands of times each day, but when done with intention, it becomes a powerful tool of inner control. And perhaps the most beautiful part of this partnership is how unconscious it normally is. You don't have to remember to breathe. You don't have to consciously direct the blood to your brain. Your body does it all for you, silently, steadily, generously. It is your life's quiet background rhythm, like music that plays while you think, dream and sleep. Even now, as you lie here in bed, your breath continues its work. With each gentle inhale, you're delivering life to your brain's hidden chambers. And with each exhale, you release the invisible traces of thought, carbon dioxide, the soft residue of living, thinking, being. Your breath does not just keep your brain alive, it nourishes your consciousness. It fuels your sense of awareness. It is the tide that moves through the architecture of thought, connecting every cell and every idea. And as the oxygen completes its journey through the brain, some molecules begin their final task, helping to synthesize neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine and GABA. These chemical messengers influence your mood, your ability to focus, your dreams, and even how deeply you sleep. So even the emotional color of your night, the peacefulness you feel, the dreams you drift into, are subtly touched by the breath you took minutes ago. You might imagine a single oxygen molecule, pulled in hours earlier, now fading out gently after fueling a memory, a dream, a tiny burst of happiness. And as it leaves, it carries with it no fanfare, just the quiet satisfaction of having played its part. The brain, for all its complexity, relies on this simple repetition: breath in, oxygen delivered, thought sustained. And in that repetition, there is grace, a deep peace, a reminder that even the most miraculous systems in your body are grounded in rhythms, not noise. And now, as the breath finishes this chapter of its journey through your mind, a new one begins. Because breath never stops. It only flows from one realm to the next, always in motion. Next, it will find its way deeper still toward the heart that pumps it and the blood that carries its memory forward. But for now, rest in this knowing. Your breath is the bridge between the world and your thoughts, between your body and your awareness, between your sleep and your dreams. And it is still here with you, always. The journey of your breath now passes through the chamber of rhythm, the heart, while the lungs gather the air and separate what's needed from what's not. The heart is the tireless courier. It never rests, not truly. Even as you sleep, even as you dream, it pulses on, delivering oxygen-rich blood to every corner of your body, including the most silent, hidden places. The heart is not just a pump. It is a synchronizer, a metronome, a guardian of balance. With each beat, it creates a soft wave, sending freshly oxygenated blood outward like a gentle tide. You may think of the heart as a four-roomed house. The top chambers, the atria, receive, the lower chambers, the ventricles, give, and in between, valves open and close like careful gates, making sure everything flows one way, never back. As the red blood cells complete their pass through the lungs, bright with oxygen and spinning like tiny discs, they return to the heart's left atrium. This chamber fills quietly, like a waiting pool. Then the blood slips down into the left ventricle, strong and muscular, the most powerful room of the heart. With a single elegant contraction, the ventricle presses the blood into the aorta, the largest artery in your body, and from there the journey continues into countless smaller vessels, each leading somewhere new. But pause here for a moment. This motion, the contraction of the ventricle, is what you feel when you place your hand over your chest. That soft thump, steady and rhythmic, is your left ventricle pushing life outward. Every beat carries the breath you took moments ago to tissues waiting quietly, patiently. Your heartbeat is the echo of your breath's intention. The heart is incredibly responsive. It listens to what your body needs and adjusts instantly. When you sleep, it slows, letting the blood drift softly through you. When you're frightened, it races, preparing you to move, to respond. When you're still, like now, it moves in calm repetition, trusting the environment around you, no longer defending, only sustaining. The blood doesn't move chaotically. It follows defined paths, arteries that branch like trees, then thin into capillaries where oxygen is exchanged, then return as veins carrying carbon dioxide back to the lungs. And the heart sits at the center of it all, like a gentle conductor guiding the breath's journey in quiet loops. There's another beauty here. The heart is also an electrical organ. Its rhythm is generated by specialized cells in the sinoatrial node, the body's natural pacemaker. These cells create a wave of electricity, a silent spark that ripples across the muscle and tells it when to beat. Your heart then does not wait for instructions. It initiates, it chooses, it leads. The harmony between breath and heart is delicate and profound. When you inhale, your heart rate subtly increases. When you exhale, it slows again. This phenomenon, called respiratory sinus arrhythmia, is a sign of a healthy adaptive nervous system. It means your body is listening to itself, adjusting with grace. Even now, as you lie still, your breath and heart are in dialogue. They are dancing partners, always attuned to each other. You may imagine your heart as a river mouth, where the current splits and rushes into 100 tributaries. Each contraction sends red blood cells spinning off in new directions, some to the brain, some to the hands, some to the liver or kidneys or bones. Each destination matters, each organ depends on this delivery, but none more than the heart itself. For the heart must feed its own muscle too. It cannot live on the blood that passes through its chambers. Instead, it receives its supply from the coronary arteries, delicate vessels that wrap around it like a crown. These arteries ensure that the heart is never left behind in its own service. Even the giver must receive. And there is something else the heart delivers. Not just breath, not just oxygen, but feeling. The brain may interpret emotion, but the heart echoes it. Love, fear, longing, safety, each can be felt in the chest before it's understood in the mind. When you're overwhelmed with joy, your heart swells. When you grieve, it aches. This is no metaphor. Your nervous system wraps tightly around your heart, receiving and sending signals constantly. The physical and the emotional are intertwined. In this way, the breath that enters your lungs and is carried by your heart doesn't just fuel your body, it shapes your experience. A breath taken in fear feels different than one taken in peace. A sigh in grief carries a different weight than a breath before sleep. The heart registers them all. As the journey continues, the oxygen now flows outward, branching through the great arterial highways that spread through your chest, arms, legs, and organs. It is no longer just a breath. It has become your circulation, your life in motion. Each beat marks a cycle completed, a promise fulfilled. And so, even as you lie here, still and calm, the motion within you is constant. Your heart is carrying breath to every part of you, over and over again. It is steady, reliable, gentle, not dramatic, not loud, but essential. You might take a moment to feel it, not with your fingers, not with your thoughts, but with your awareness. Picture your heart now, nestled behind your sternum, beating its quiet rhythm, not asking for attention, not needing praise, just serving, just delivering, just loving you in the only way it knows how, through constant giving. And the oxygen, it's ready for its next journey into the tissues, into the tiny capillaries, into the cells that wait with open arms. But before we go there, breathe gently and rest. Know that your heart is still working, even now, and that your breath is still travelling through you, not ending but always beginning again. From the rhythmic chambers of the heart, the breath you took long ago has become something else entirely, a quiet, invisible tide riding through branching rivers of blood. With each beat, red blood cells, tiny, round, and impossibly busy, carry oxygen to every organ, every limb, every hidden place in your body. But now, the journey becomes smaller, more intricate. From the great arteries, the path narrows, winding into arterioles, then shrinking further into capillaries, so thin that blood cells must squeeze through in single file. Here, in these delicate networks woven through every tissue, something miraculous happens. Delivery. Oxygen unhooks from its hemoglobin passenger and slips across the paper-thin wall of the capillary. It moves, not with force but with quiet purpose, obeying only the gentle laws of diffusion. The air you once drew in now leaves the bloodstream, entering the fluid between your cells. It drifts onward, slipping into the outer membrane of a waiting cell, your cell, where the true transformation begins. Every cell in your body is a world of its own, a self-contained ecosystem, bustling and alive, enclosed in a soft membrane that both protects and connects. You are made of trillions of these tiny engines of life, each performing its own tasks, yet all in harmony with the whole. Inside the cell, the oxygen is received like a guest of honor. It moves swiftly toward the mitochondria, those oval-shaped organelles often called the powerhouses of the cell. But that phrase doesn't do them justice. They are more than just engines, they are alchemists. They turn oxygen and nutrients into energy, and in doing so make every heartbeat, every thought, every dream possible. This process, cellular respiration, is the invisible fire at the heart of life. The mitochondria take in glucose, broken down from the food you've eaten, and combine it with oxygen to release energy in the form of ATP, adenosine triphosphate. This tiny molecule is your body's currency of action. It powers muscles, nerves, glands, and even the tiny flicker of eyelashes or the twitch of a dream-touched finger. But nothing here is rushed. There's a rhythm, a slow, deliberate process at work. You may imagine it like this. Oxygen arrives at the mitochondrion like a letter carried across continents. The envelope is opened, the message read, the energy released. And what remains, the carbon dioxide, the waste product of this exchange, is gently packaged and returned to the bloodstream, ready for the trip back to the lungs. The breath you took minutes ago has now nourished the deepest parts of you. It has allowed cells to repair, to move, to think, to love, and it continues, again and again in each one of your trillions of cells, tiny breaths within the larger breath of your life. In your muscles, the oxygen keeps fibers flexible and strong. In your brain, it supports neurons firing across synaptic gaps, shaping thoughts, feelings, memories. In your liver, it helps filter and transform, turning potential toxins into harmless substances. In your bones, it aids the creation of new blood cells, keeping your body replenished and young. And inside the cells, the process is not just mechanical, it's intelligent. Mitochondria respond to your environment. When you move more, they multiply. When you fast, they become more efficient. When you're under stress, they adapt. These tiny organelles are in constant conversation with your body's needs. They listen, they adjust, they remember. But they are also vulnerable. Without enough oxygen, they falter. Cells can survive for a short time without it, switching to less efficient pathways. But over time, without breath, they fade. It's a reminder, soft and clear, of how deeply you depend on each inhale. Not just to feel alive, but to be alive. And yet, despite this complexity, your cells don't ask for your attention. They work whether you're aware of them or not. Whether you're walking or sleeping, thinking or dreaming, they continue their ancient work. They are faithful companions, asking only for the breath you so often give without thinking. This is the part of the breath's journey you cannot feel directly. You don't sense oxygen entering a cell or ATP being produced, but you experience it in every moment, in the ability to lift a hand, in the sharpness of your thoughts, in the warmth of your skin. It is in you, and it is you. And in some cells, particularly in your brain and nervous system, the process is more sensitive, more urgent. Neurons cannot store energy. They rely on a constant stream of oxygen and glucose. A few minutes without breath, and they begin to suffer. It is here, perhaps more than anywhere else, that the breath becomes sacred. For without it, consciousness fades, and with it, the mystery of being returns. Back in the bloodstream, the carbon dioxide released by the cells is already on its return journey. It is carried by plasma or tucked inside red blood cells, heading back through venules, veins, the vena cava, and ultimately to the right side of your heart. From there, the breath now spent will be exhaled, completing its arc. But inside the cells, the story doesn't end. The energy created sparks countless other processes. DNA is copied, proteins are built, waste is cleaned, light-sensitive molecules in your eyes convert photons into sight, sensory cells in your skin translate pressure into touch. Every movement, every memory, every act of being begins at this cellular level, carried by the breath. Some scientists suggest that mitochondria are ancient bacteria, long ago invited into early cells in a partnership so successful it shaped all complex life. And in every cell that story continues, a breath taken by the whole, shared with the smallest part. You may lie still now, and yet your cells are busy, quietly using the breath you gave them, writing the next chapter of your existence. As we prepare to follow that breath onward, to see how it moves through the brain and shapes perception, pause here, let your body rest, let your cells work. The breath has come far, but it has further to go. By now, the breath has travelled far. It entered through your nose or mouth as simple air, carried promise through the windpipe and bronchi, settled deep within the lungs, and passed gently into your bloodstream. It journeyed to your heart, then flowed outward through a vast network of vessels until it reached your cells, every last one of them. But now the breath arrives at a sacred threshold, a final delicate destination, your brain. Your brain is the most oxygen-hungry organ you possess. It weighs only about 2% of your total body mass, and yet it demands roughly 20% of the oxygen you breathe. Every thought, every feeling, every flicker of memory and motion relies on the constant, generous arrival of breath. As the oxygen-rich blood flows up through your carotid arteries, two strong pulsing streams that rise like twin rivers along either side of your neck, it passes into a hidden sanctuary, the brain's intricate, protected chamber. Your skull holds it gently like a precious treasure. Your cerebrospinal fluid cushions it, floating your brain in a pool of safety. And within this quiet shelter, oxygen crosses the blood-brain barrier, a selective, tightly guarded gateway that allows only what's necessary to pass. Once inside, the oxygen begins its most intimate work. It doesn't simply nourish a muscle or fuel a heartbeat. Here, it powers the very machinery of mind. Neurons, the long, thread-like cells of the brain, rely on oxygen to generate electrical impulses. These impulses are the signals that allow one neuron to speak to another, across synapses, through chemical messengers, building vast networks of thought, emotion, and awareness. You are not aware of it, but as you read or listen now, billions of neurons are quietly firing in your cortex. The breath makes this possible. It gives them the energy they need to send their tiny flickering signals, like fireflies in a vast forest blinking in perfect coordination, each blink a thought, each flicker a choice, each cluster a memory reawakening. Within milliseconds of oxygen arriving, it is used by mitochondria nestled inside these neurons. The result is ATP, the energy currency we've met before, now spent to reset ion balances, maintain cellular structure, and keep signals flowing across the synapses. Without this constant flow of energy, communication falters. Without breath, thinking fades. The brain doesn't store oxygen. It cannot wait. A few seconds of interruption and the neurons begin to slow. A minute without breath and consciousness begins to blur. More than a few, and the damage may be permanent. That's why your body prioritizes breath for the brain above all else. If there is a shortage, it is here that the final reserves will be spent. Your body knows. The breath is life, but in the brain, the breath is self. Different areas of your brain use oxygen in different ways. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for focus, planning, and reflection, needs energy to manage complex reasoning. The amygdala, tied to fear and emotion, flares with activity when you're stressed or scared. The hippocampus, deep within your temporal lobes, depends on oxygen to form and retrieve memories. As you sleep, the breath still feeds these same structures. Dreams form, memories are sorted, emotional tensions are released. The breath doesn't pause when consciousness does. It simply flows more gently, more rhythmically, like a tide caressing the shore of your quiet mind. Even in meditation, when thoughts slow and awareness turns inward, oxygen quietly supports this state of peace. Breathing deep and slow signals your vagus nerve, part of the parasympathetic system, to soothe the body. The breath lowers your heart rate, eases your muscles, quiets the chatter of stress. It is both the cause and the carrier of calm. In moments of insight, those flashes of clarity that seem to come from nowhere, oxygen is part of the spark. It fuels the sudden connectivity between distant neural networks. Creativity arises not from chaos, but from the brain's elegant, oxygen-fed ability to organize and reframe ideas in fresh ways. Even the feeling of being alive, of having a self, a story, a presence, is dependent on this gentle delivery of breath. There is a part of your brain, the default mode network, that lights up when you're daydreaming, reflecting, or imagining yourself in the future. It burns a surprising amount of energy, drawing deeply on oxygen. In a way, breath sustains not just the body, but the soul, the part of you that dreams, hopes, and remembers. As you lie quietly now, perhaps with your eyes closed, feel the presence of that breath in your head. You may not sense the molecules, but you can feel the effects, the stillness, the clarity, the presence of being aware. Each breath rises to nourish your thoughts. Each exhale releases not just carbon dioxide, but a little weight, a little clutter, a little tension you no longer need. And in that stillness, a question arises. Where do your thoughts go when breath pauses? When a breath ends and another has not yet begun, there is a brief empty space, a quiet between, a gap where no inhale nor exhale exists. Some call this the doorway to deeper awareness, a place of silence, a place of rest. But the next breath always comes, the cycle continues, and your brain, lit softly from within, welcomes it like a returning friend. It has waited, and now it receives. The breath has travelled far, but there is still more to see. For as oxygen fuels your mind, it also returns to the bloodstream, ready to release what it no longer needs. The journey continues not forward now, but outward, toward release, toward letting go, toward the final exhale. Let us follow it there, gently, into the final stages of the breath story. where everything that was once used is now offered back, given freely to the world outside, as the brain completes its intricate dance with oxygen, transforming breath into memory, thought, sensation, and awareness. The time comes for the breath to let go. The oxygen has been spent, transformed in countless microscopic exchanges into carbon dioxide, a byproduct of all that quiet, essential living. And now that byproduct must find its way out. The journey continues, not one of arrival now, but of release. Carbon dioxide, though often thought of merely as waste, is far from useless. It plays a crucial role in the balance of your body. It regulates your blood's pH, influences how tightly oxygen binds to hemoglobin, and even affects your urge to breathe. Too little carbon dioxide and you might feel dizzy. Too much and your body urges you insistently to exhale, to let go. The carbon dioxide gathers in the blood dissolved like mist in water, and is carried by red blood cells and plasma. It flows downstream, tracing the same rivers the oxygen once navigated through veins this time, not arteries. It's a quieter ride now, slower and lower in pressure, moving steadily toward the lungs. The breath's return is not hurried. It is steady, like dusk replacing day, a necessary part of the cycle. Along the way, some carbon dioxide slips out through your skin. A tiny fraction even leaves through your breath between words or while you sleep, slowly diffusing with each quiet exhale. But most of it follows a clear path, winding its way through larger and larger veins, femoral, hepatic, jugular, until it empties into the great vessels of return, the superior and inferior vena cava. These vessels deliver the breath's byproducts back to the heart. The right atrium welcomes the blood first, receiving it gently like a chambered shell, taking in the tide. Then it passes into the right ventricle, where a muscular squeeze sends it up and outward toward the lungs once more. This is the pulmonary circuit, the loop that returns what's used to the place where breath begins again. In the lungs, deep within the alveoli, the tiny air sacs like bubbles stack gently in clusters. The carbon dioxide diffuses out of the blood. It crosses the alveolar wall, a membrane thinner than a hair, and enters the airways. All around, fresh oxygen waits to enter. The exchange is seamless, constant, soft. One gas released, one gas received, a rhythm as old as life itself. You exhale, and with that breath out, you give the world what your cells no longer need. The carbon dioxide enters the atmosphere, where it may feed a leaf, stir a breeze, or rise quietly into the sky. It is not waste, not in the greater story. It is simply part of the balance, a part of the breath's return to the whole. This release, this exhale, is as vital as the inhale. Just as you must take in to live, so too must you let go. Holding on too long, whether to air or emotion or thought, builds pressure. But letting go, that is the breath's great gift. With every out-breath, you are making space again, clearing the field for what's next, resetting. The nervous system notices this. Long, slow exhales signal safety. They activate the parasympathetic system, the rest and digest part of you that soothes the heart, relaxes the muscles, calms the mind. This is why sighing can feel like release, why breathing out is so often the beginning of softening. You've done it many times, at the end of a long day, standing at the edge of the sea, or as tears begin to fall. The exhale is the body's way of saying, I can let go now. But what's remarkable is that this letting go isn't just passive, it's intelligent. It's part of your body's dialogue with itself and with the world. Your brainstem, particularly a small cluster of neurons in the medulla oblongata, is constantly sensing the level of carbon dioxide in your blood. If it rises, the neurons signal your body to breathe deeper, to exhale more fully. And so, even without your awareness, your breath adjusts moment to moment to what your body needs. And still, breath is more than exchange. It is experience. When you run or laugh or cry, your breathing changes. When you kiss or meditate or hold someone close, your breath shifts again. The return of breath is not just physiological, it's emotional, spiritual. A cycle not only of oxygen and carbon dioxide, but of presence and surrender. So now, as the carbon dioxide leaves your lungs and flows into the night air, imagine this breath being received by a tree, or carried by the wind across a sleeping field. It does not vanish. It becomes part of something else. It continues. Just as you do, In the next chapter, we will follow this breath outward beyond the body into the ecosystems that receive it, the atmosphere that carries it, and the world that breathes it in return. Because the story of breath is not confined to the lungs, it reaches everywhere. The breath that left your body, the carbon dioxide exhaled quietly into your room, or the night breeze, does not simply disappear. It becomes part of something far greater than you, something vast and ever-moving, the atmosphere. The air around you is a living ocean of invisible currents, a planetary breath that wraps the earth like a soft protective shawl. It is this shared medium that connects your lungs to trees, your sighs to clouds, your inhale to the ancient breath of dinosaurs and stars. With every exhalation, you return part of yourself to this communal rhythm, and with every inhalation, you draw the world into you. The atmosphere is not empty. It is thick with memory and motion. It is composed of gases, mostly nitrogen, with oxygen and traces of argon, carbon dioxide and others, but also holds heat, moisture, pollen, ash, scents, and whispers of distant places. Air is not static. It flows in vast spirals and small eddies, rising and falling with temperature, time, and terrain. It weaves through forests, rushes over rooftops, curls around mountains, and slips under doors. The breath you release in your bedroom tonight may drift out through a window, rise with the warmth of your home, and be carried miles by morning. Perhaps it touches a nearby leaf. Perhaps it joins a jet stream bound for another continent. In this way, breath is borderless. And somewhere, in a nearby tree or perhaps in a far-off jungle, a leaf is waiting. A leaf or a blade of grass or a needle on a pine. To you, carbon dioxide is waste, but to the plant, it is nourishment. With sunlight filtering through its canopy, the plant opens tiny pores called stomata, little mouths that drink in carbon dioxide from the air. Inside the green cells of the leaf, something miraculous happens. Using sunlight as energy, the plant takes that carbon dioxide and, along with water drawn from its roots, builds sugars, molecules of life. It also releases a gift in return, oxygen. This process, photosynthesis, is the heartbeat of the living world. It is where sunlight becomes food, where air becomes substance, where breath becomes balance. Every tree you see, every blade of grass you've walked across, every forest, meadow, moss and fern is engaged in this quiet alchemy. They are the lungs of the planet, not just metaphorically, but chemically, physiologically, intimately. The oxygen you breathe right now may have been exhaled by a birch tree yesterday, or a seaweed frond drifting in a coastal tide pool, or a patch of rainforest thousands of miles away. Plants don't breathe like we do. They don't inhale and exhale in cycles of pressure and muscle. Their exchange with the atmosphere is continuous, passive, and profoundly patient. They create oxygen during the day and sometimes take it back in small amounts at night. But overall, they give more than they take. They offer the world the breath it needs to stay alive. They cleanse the air of excess carbon. They soften the harshness of heat and slow the currents of wind. They do this without fanfare, without pause, without asking anything in return. This is the great reciprocity of breath. You exhale carbon dioxide. The plant inhales it. The plant exhales oxygen. You inhale it. You feed one another invisibly, constantly, without needing to meet. And yet through this cycle you are connected. Breath is not a personal act. It is participation in something vast and ancient and endlessly generous. When you breathe, you are never alone. In the cities, it's easy to forget this. We breathe through filters, behind windows, under artificial lights. We might feel disconnected from the natural world, but the air is still there, still moving, still whispering stories from one being to another. Even in the most crowded subway, the air you breathe has passed through trees, birds, animals, clouds. It carries molecules exhaled by others, loved ones and strangers, ancestors and animals, those far away and long gone. This may sound unsettling, but it is not. It is beautiful, because it means we are never isolated. We are always part of each other's breath. Even more astonishing, the oxygen we breathe, the carbon we exhale, it has been part of this planet's rhythm for billions of years. The oxygen in your lungs was forged in ancient stars. The carbon in your cells has cycled through volcanoes and fish and ferns. Every breath you take is rich with cosmic history. Every inhale is a shared inheritance. Every exhale is a quiet offering back to the world. Take a slow, deep breath. Let it move through you. Now imagine that breath leaving you and becoming part of the forest. A fox inhales a trace of it. A fern unfurls in its presence. A cloud holds it for a while, then releases it as rain. That rain falls onto soil. The soil feeds a seed. The seed becomes a tree. And one day someone else will stand beneath that tree, breathe deeply and unknowingly inhale a part of what you once were. That is the magic of shared breath. The atmosphere is also a delicate balance. Too much carbon dioxide, and the planet warms. Too little, and life begins to starve. Trees and oceans are the great stabilizers. Forests absorb carbon dioxide, not just through leaves, but through roots, soil, and symbiotic fungi that help transport and store it. Oceans take in vast amounts of carbon, buffering the climate. Even as they acidify, these systems are not limitless, they are generous, but they need balance too. They remind us that breathing is not just biological, it's ethical. How we live affects the breathability of the future. To breathe consciously, then, is to live gently, to walk lightly, to plant trees, to protect wild places, to pause and notice the wind, to recognize that breath is a gift, not a guarantee, that each breath is made possible by the invisible labor of green things, of rain, of sun, of soil, of time. And perhaps, too, it's a reminder to slow down, to breathe with awareness, to understand that when you sigh after a long day, or take a breath before speaking, you are engaging in something ancient. You are participating in a ceremony that unites you with all life. This is why deep breathing soothes us, why a walk in the woods feels like medicine, why opening a window can shift a mood, because breath is not just air, it is connection, it is presence, it is life flowing in and out of you, endlessly. As the breath leaves your body and merges with the world, something extraordinary happens. You are reminded that your body is not a boundary, it is a bridge. Breath crosses that bridge every moment, from world to self and back again, from tree to lung, from sea to cell, from sky to soul. And so the air around you is not empty. It is full of stories, of particles passed hand to hand, leaf to leaf, breath to breath. You are breathing in stardust and forest lullabies. You are exhaling warmth and memory and the quiet songs of your cells. With every breath you take, you belong. In the next chapter, we will travel further still into the ancient memories of air itself, how Earth's atmosphere was shaped, how breath evolved from microbes and oceans and light, how the invisible became essential, because to understand the breath we share now, we must first listen to where it came from. Let's follow that whisper into the past. Long before you were born, before your parents and their parents, before language, fire, or the beating of human hearts, there was breath. Not your breath, not even breath as lungs know it now, but an ancient movement in the airless silence of a newborn earth. To follow your breath, truly follow it, you must travel back not just to the edge of a forest or a moment in childhood, but billions of years into the past to when the atmosphere itself was only beginning to form. You begin this journey not by walking or flying, but by imagining the breath you took just now, tracing it backward, past your lungs and bloodstream, beyond the trees that release the oxygen, before even the oceans that birthed the algae. You arrive at a time when Earth's sky was not blue, not gentle, and not filled with life. It was a toxic haze of volcanic gas, heavy with carbon dioxide, methane, ammonia, and sulfur. No oxygen, no ozone, no breath as we know it. The air then was an invisible ocean of fire and minerals. Comets had delivered water, but life had not yet found its rhythm. Volcanoes exhaled without end, and Earth's atmosphere was shaped by eruptions, collisions, and a restless molten surface. The sky was red and thick, the sun dimmed behind clouds of dust. It was in this chaos, this elemental storm, that the ingredients of breath were scattered. The first whispers of atmosphere began, not as a gift but as a byproduct of planetary fury. And yet, this furious world gave rise to something astonishing. Somewhere deep in the oceans, where hot water met mineral-rich rock, tiny organisms emerged. Single-celled and ancient beyond imagining, they began to eat sunlight. These were cyanobacteria, among Earth's first breath-givers. They didn't look like much, just microscopic threads floating in warm, shallow seas, but they held the secret to transforming the planet: photosynthesis. They took in carbon dioxide and sunlight and exhaled oxygen. They did this for millions of years, quietly, patiently. Layer after layer, their exhaled oxygen rose. It did not immediately transform the atmosphere. At first, it reacted with iron in the oceans, rusting it into red sediments that settled onto the sea floor. This went on for eons, a silent preparation, a chemical rehearsal, and then, slowly, the balance began to shift. Oxygen started to collect in the air. Imagine that moment, not a sudden change, but a tipping point in stillness. The sky, once choking and opaque, began to clear. Blue scattered through the thinning haze. Light reached the ground with new clarity, and breath, as you now know it, became possible. Not all at once, not even for animals, not yet, but a doorway had opened. Your breath today carries the legacy of this ancient transformation. Every inhale is filled with oxygen shaped by eons of invisible labour. The nitrogen that dominates your breath, nearly 78% of the air you take in, has also been part of Earth's atmosphere for billions of years, cycling through volcanoes, soil and storms. Even the carbon dioxide, a tiny fraction of your breath, tells a story of balance and imbalance, of life and death, of Earth's long dialogue between plant and animal, ocean and sky. To breathe is to be in conversation with the planet's memory. The Great Oxygenation Event, the time when oxygen began to dominate the atmosphere, occurred around 2.4 billion years ago. But it wasn't without consequence. That oxygen, so vital to us now, was toxic to many of Earth's early life forms. It caused a mass extinction. Entire microbial ecosystems vanished, poisoned by the very element that would later make animal life possible. In a way, breath was born in sacrifice. Still, evolution did not pause. It adapted. Some microbes developed new ways of harnessing oxygen's power. The Earth, oxygenated and lit by a brightening sun, became fertile ground for complexity. Multicellular life emerged. Algae evolved in the oceans. Plants began their slow march onto land, bringing oxygen with them, leaf by leaf, root by root. You see trees today as solitary beings, but their ancestors were revolutionaries. Their presence on Earth reshaped the atmosphere yet again. Forests spread, and the levels of oxygen rose dramatically, at times reaching concentrations far higher than today. In some ancient epochs, dragonflies with wingspans as wide as your arm soared through the sky, powered by air so rich in oxygen it lifted their bloodless bodies with ease. And yet, balance always returns. Earth is not a place of permanence, but of cycles, breathing in, breathing out, again and again, across millions of years. Now you return, gently to the present, but with new eyes. The breath you just took contains atoms from those ancient oxygen surges, molecules that passed through the lungs of dinosaurs, through the leaves of ferns buried in coal beds, through the gills of prehistoric fish. That same breath, scattered, recycled, returned, is not just yours, it is the planet's. A single breath may hold the memory of a wildfire, the exhalation of a poet, the sigh of a sleeping animal under a long extinct tree. And as you breathe out, your own contribution floats into this eternal cycle. Your carbon dioxide feeds the nearest plant, which in time will release oxygen again. The atmosphere accepts your breath not as noise, but as harmony. You belong to it. You always have. But it is not only biology that has shaped breath. The atmosphere itself, that invisible fragile shell around our world, is held together by gravity, balanced by the sun, and ever shifting. Winds carry your breath across oceans. Storms remix the sky. The auroras at Earth's poles shimmer where particles from space collide with our upper atmosphere, whispering electric lullabies into the magnetic field. Even here, breath is touched by the cosmos. Pause now. Feel the weightlessness of that idea, that what fills your lungs is not just air but history, not just oxygen but time. In this moment, as you lie still and soft, you are breathing an inheritance older than humanity. The air around you has been forged in stars, shaped by bacteria, breathed by giants, and carried by wind into this very room, and your breath, gentle, quiet, unseen, joins this long planetary song. Let yourself feel it now. Inhale slowly, deeper, hold it gently, not with tension but with awe, and now exhale, release it like a gift. You do not need to remember the exact names, the numbers, the epochs. It is enough to know that you are part of a great ancient rhythm, that you are not only alive, but in communion with a sky that remembers when life began. So rest here, with the ancient sky above you, no longer red and choking, but blue and soft, woven with clouds that once held the breath of your ancestors. Drift now with this awareness, light and easy, knowing the air itself will carry you onward. Because your journey through breath is not over, not yet. There are oceans to visit still, places where breath begins anew beneath waves in the lungs of the sea. There are dreams to follow in sleep, and stillnesses between breaths that hold mysteries of their own. But for now, let the ancient sky wrap gently around your thoughts like a blanket of memory. You are part of something vast, something tender, something old, and always beginning again. Breathe and float softly into what comes next. If the sky is the breath you see, the ocean is the breath you forget. Quiet, immense, and always moving, the sea doesn't shout. It inhales with the tides, exhales with the waves. It holds more oxygen, more carbon, more memory than you might ever guess. So now, follow your breath not upward but downward, into the blue world below where life began and where breath still finds its deepest rhythm. You stand at the edge of the shore, toes in cool sand, the wind brushing past your skin, but your breath has already left you. It has drifted across the surf and settled into the sea's vast surface, joining millions of other molecules in a slow dance of dissolution. The ocean is not just water, it's a breathing surface, a sponge of gases. Every second it is absorbing what the air gives and releasing what it holds in return. Most people think trees give us the air we breathe, and they do, but only partly. The true lungs of the planet lie beneath the waves. Phytoplankton, those tiny drifting plant-like organisms, float near the sunlit surface of the sea, capturing light, pulling in carbon dioxide, and releasing oxygen in return. They are microscopic, nearly invisible, but they produce more than half the oxygen in Earth's atmosphere. 1 out of every 2 breaths you take began in the ocean. These plankton are not alone. Algae swaying like green hair in coastal shallows, kelp forests stretching to the surface like underwater canopies. All of them are part of the breath economy of the sea. They do not breathe in the way animals do, but they make breathing possible. Their gift is silent, ceaseless, and far more ancient than any forest. Imagine your breath now, a bubble released by a dolphin, a swirl of exhale in the water as a whale surfaces for air. The ocean holds breath in countless forms: dissolved gases, exhaled trails, trapped pockets in coral reefs. And the creatures of the deep, those without lungs, breathe in their own ways. Fish pull water across their gills, harvesting oxygen from fluid instead of air. Crabs, mollusks, even jellyfish extract breath from water so softly you'd never notice. The ocean breathes, and it remembers. For hundreds of millions of years it has acted as Earth's great regulator. When there is too much carbon in the atmosphere, the ocean pulls it down. When there is too little oxygen, it grows quiet, still, acidic. But it always moves. It always breathes. Deep currents carry oxygen into the abyss, feeding ecosystems in darkness. Upwellings stir nutrients toward the surface, feeding plankton, feeding fish, feeding the world. And as you lie still now, listening to your own soft inhale and exhale, the ocean mirrors you, a giant rhythm beneath the moon. There is another kind of breath the ocean knows. Storms. Hurricanes inhale warm, moist air from the sea, and when they exhale, they do so in thunder, wind, and wave. This is breath as weather, chaotic, unpredictable, necessary. These breaths stir the surface, churn the gases, mix the oxygen-rich top with the deeper, quieter layers. Even destruction in nature has its purpose in balance. You might be wondering how your own breath reaches the ocean. The answer is simple and subtle. Carbon dioxide. Every exhale releases it. Some of that gas is pulled in by nearby trees, but much of it floats skyward, eventually landing on the ocean skin. There, it dissolves and becomes part of a slow global cycle, the carbon cycle. In the water, it reacts to form carbonic acid, bicarbonate, and carbonate. It becomes the building material for shells, coral, and even the bones of creatures you will never see. In this way, your breath leaves traces in limestone, in fossils, in underwater caves. You are not just connected to the ocean, you are inscribed into it. But the ocean is changing. As the planet warms and carbon builds in the atmosphere, the ocean absorbs more than it can comfortably hold. This leads to acidification, a soft but dangerous shift in chemistry. The shells of tiny creatures begin to weaken, coral bleaches, the balance of breath teeters, and yet the ocean continues. It does not stop breathing, even when burdened. It adapts, it evolves, but it cannot do so alone. That is why knowing your breath, where it comes from, where it goes, is not just curiosity, it's connection. To understand that the sea responds to each breath you take is to realize your place in the web of life. You are not just breathing from the ocean, you are breathing with it. Close your eyes now. Imagine the great whales rising from the deep with lungs full of air. Their breath shoots skyward in a misty column, a memory of the deep breaking into the sky. They are mammals like you, evolved in water but tied to air. Their breath is loud, visible, ancient, and in that moment sky and sea are united. Now picture a kelp forest. Light flickers through the water, green and golden. Fish weave through the strands, and oxygen bubbles rise gently from every leaf. You're not watching from above, you are in it, floating, breathing, suspended. The water around you is soft and the silence is full of life. Stay here for a moment. Let your mind breathe with the water. Let your thoughts dissolve into salt and current. There is no urgency here, only cycles, no deadlines, only tides. The breath you take in this moment carries molecules that may have spent hours floating near the Sargasso Sea, or minutes in the lungs of a seal diving off Antarctica. It may have drifted past coral gardens, spiraled around drifting ice, or hovered above hydrothermal vents in darkness so complete it feels like outer space. Your breath is their breath. The ocean gives it to you freely, and you return it, whether you know it or not. As you fall into deeper rest, you may begin to feel as if you're floating. That sensation is not a trick of sleep. It is memory, cellular memory, a remembrance of the water in which all life began. Before lungs, before skin, your ancestors breathed through gills, through pores, through the membranes of single cells in tide pools warmed by sun. Your blood, rich with salt, still carries that echo. So when you breathe tonight, let it feel like a tide, in and out, gentle and strong. You are the shore and the wave. You are the surface and the depth. And as your breath softens, your body grows heavier, and your mind slips into sleep, the ocean breathes with you. Quietly, eternally, one breath at a time. There are moments when breath no longer flows like a river but stumbles, pauses, pulls back as if unsure. These are the moments when the body hesitates. You feel it as a sudden tightness, a missed rhythm, a space that stretches too long between inhale and exhale. And in that fragile pause, you become aware of something normally invisible, the miracle of your breath and the quiet ache that comes when it falters. Perhaps you have woken in the night with a start, your body gasping in the darkness for air it thought had slipped away. Or maybe you've climbed stairs and felt breath grow shallow, your chest rising faster, your lungs struggling to catch up with your legs. These moments are gentle reminders, sometimes uncomfortable ones, that breath is not automatic, not guaranteed. It is an ever-renewing gift, offered again and again by a body that works quietly, constantly, to keep you alive. When breath falters, your body reacts in ripples. Sensors in your bloodstream detect low oxygen levels, and signals are dispatched through nerves to your brainstem, the ancient primal part of you that has watched over breathing since before you were born. That brainstem sends out a call to action. Muscles tense, your diaphragm contracts more urgently, air rushes in. This response is called dyspnea, the feeling of breathlessness. It is not just a physical signal but an emotional one too. Breathlessness carries with it a certain panic, a whisper from the depths of your being that something essential is slipping. Even a short moment without breath can awaken fear, and yet paradoxically, learning to observe these moments, to watch them with curiosity instead of fear, can bring you closer to the wisdom of your own body. There are many ways breath can falter. Sleep apnea is one, a condition both common and often unnoticed. It causes breathing to stop for brief periods during sleep. The airway relaxes too much, the muscles collapse, and for a few seconds, sometimes longer, the breath is interrupted. The sleeper may not wake fully, but the brain jolts awake enough to trigger breathing again. This can happen dozens or even hundreds of times a night. The person wakes tired, unrested, without ever remembering the struggle their body endured in the dark. Then there is asthma, a breath that fights against itself. In this condition, the airways tighten, inflame, and fill with mucus. The path that was once open and free becomes narrow and turbulent. The breath wheezes, it claws. Even though oxygen is all around, the body feels as though it's drowning in air that cannot quite enter. Asthma reminds us that breath is not only about oxygen, it is also about ease, about flow, about freedom in motion. In moments of emotional distress, breath falters too. Anxiety can cause hyperventilation, a rapid, shallow breathing that throws off the delicate balance between oxygen and carbon dioxide. Ironically, breathing too much and too fast can make you feel breathless. Your fingertips may tingle, dizziness may follow. It is not a lack of oxygen, but an imbalance, a chemical shift in your blood that the brain interprets as alarm. But here is where knowledge becomes comfort. In understanding these falterings, you learn to work with them. You learn that slow, steady breaths can bring calm not only to your thoughts, but to the body's biochemistry. You learn that breath can be your anchor in storms, that you can meet the faltering with compassion, not fear. There are deeper falterings too. In hospitals, monitors trace the breath of the unwell. Machines gently inflate lungs that no longer remember how. The breath becomes data, a series of waves on a screen, watched by quiet nurses at midnight. In some cases, the breath is managed by ventilators, tools that assist or replace the body's own efforts to draw in life. These are the outer edges of breath, where science becomes tenderness and care holds up what biology can no longer fully sustain. In these moments, breath is not just function, it is symbol. The presence of breath means the story continues. Its absence marks the quiet threshold between life and death. That is why the phrase "the last breath" carries such sacred weight. It is not just the end of respiration, it is the final note in the symphony of a life. Yet even in faltering, breath teaches. It shows you where you are vulnerable, yes, but also where you are resilient. The body has backups, redundancies, ways of preserving oxygen when supplies run low. Your brain can survive without new oxygen for a few minutes, an astonishing feat of preservation. Divers and monks trained to extend their breath-holding capacity far beyond the average. Some can remain underwater for 4, 5, even 10 minutes, their hearts slowing, their metabolism adjusting, their breath held in a still, sacred balance. You begin to realize that breath is both fragile and fierce. It can falter with the softest imbalance, yet it can also endure conditions most creatures would not survive. It connects you to life, yes, but also to the edge of life. And in that edge, there is clarity, appreciation, reverence. There is also healing. Breath therapy is used for trauma, for grief, for chronic pain. Guided breathwork has helped people reclaim agency over bodies that once felt foreign. From simple deep breathing exercises to elaborate pranayama techniques in yoga, humanity has long known that breath is more than biology, it is transformation. It is a doorway into feeling, into calm, into power. So the next time your breath falters, even briefly, do not fear it. Instead, listen, feel. Let it remind you that you are alive in a world where breath is not merely a function, but a rhythm of connection. Each breath, even the broken one, still carries life. And when the breath slows again into calm, into rest, into steady rhythm, you'll find something deeper waiting beneath the surface. Something that speaks of pause, of stillness, of surrender. The faltering is not failure. It is part of the pattern. In the space between the easy breaths and the ones that hesitate, you will find a kind of wisdom. And in the chapter that follows, we'll enter that very space, the stillness between breaths, and discover what dwells in the pause. There is a quiet place between every inhale and exhale, a pause so small you often miss it, but it's always there, like the silent space between two waves, or the brief hush between heartbeats. This is the stillness between breaths, and though it may seem empty, it is anything but. The stillness is a moment of transition, a soft turning point. Your lungs are full but not yet letting go, or they are empty but not yet pulling in. It is not action but anticipation, not movement, but readiness. And in this space, something extraordinary happens. Your body rests, your awareness expands, your breath, for a fleeting moment, becomes pure presence. This pause is not forced, it is built into you. Infants have it, animals have it, monks and meditators simply notice it more often. In deep meditation, people often describe slipping into this stillness, where the breath becomes so soft, so subtle, it nearly disappears. In these moments, the world quiets, thought slows, and something inside, something ancient, watches without needing to act. Physiologically, this stillness has a purpose. When your breath pauses even for half a second, your body stabilizes its chemistry. Gas exchange in the lungs continues. Oxygen moves gently into your blood. Carbon dioxide drifts outward. Your diaphragm is momentarily still. Your intercostal muscles relaxed. The heart continues its steady rhythm, unhurried. In that pause, energy is conserved, not wasted. Balance is preserved. The nervous system notices this too. The parasympathetic system, the part responsible for rest and calm, often rises during the pause. Your heart rate may slow slightly. A sense of groundedness can begin to emerge. And if you're paying attention, you might feel it. The profound peace of doing nothing, needing nothing, just being. In spiritual and contemplative traditions around the world, this stillness has long been recognized. In Zen, it is the gap between thoughts. In yoga, the pause is called kumbhaka, the breath held after inhalation or exhalation, believed to open the door to deeper states of consciousness. In Sufism, breath is seen as a sacred tide that carries divine rhythm and the stillness between breaths, a space where the soul listens. But you don't need to be a monk or mystic to experience this. You only need to notice. The next time you take a deep breath, pause at the top, just for a moment. Don't force it. Just feel the fullness, and then let it go. Then rest again at the bottom, lungs empty but calm. Feel how quiet the world becomes in that gap. These pauses offer a powerful gift. They remind you that rest is not laziness, that stillness is not emptiness. In fact, some of the most vital processes in the body happen during moments of quiet. Your cells renew themselves while you sleep. Your mind integrates memory when you stop thinking. Your breath resets itself when you stop trying to control it. In the stillness, your body listens. It listens to your heartbeat, to your emotions, to your needs, and you in turn begin to listen to your body. You might hear the tension you've been carrying in your chest, the anxiety that's been fluttering at the edge of awareness, or the deep calm waiting underneath it all. Stillness also allows for change. Just as a swing pauses before reversing direction, or the ocean gathers itself between tides, your breath rests before it moves again. These small rests are where momentum is lost and where new momentum is born. They are spaces of potential. In moments of stress, these pauses often vanish. Breath becomes short, rapid, clipped. There is no room for stillness, no margin for calm. But when you intentionally lengthen your breath, slow it down, and notice the gaps, you reclaim something vital. You step back from urgency. You invite peace. Try this now. Inhale slowly. Feel your lungs expand. At the top, hold gently, not tight, just still. Then exhale slowly. At the bottom, wait again. Rest in that empty space. Feel how nothing needs to happen, how the world continues without your effort. This is not about control. It is about allowing, about trusting your breath to carry you, and trusting yourself to rest in the spaces in between. It is here, in this pause, that your mind often finds its clearest insight, that your body remembers it is not a machine, but a rhythm. In the ancient Ayurvedic tradition, breath is said to carry prana, life force, and in the pause between breaths, prana is said to gather, to center, to settle. This is where healing begins, not in action but in gentle inaction, not in doing but in allowing. The stillness between breaths is also a metaphor for the pauses in life, the days between endings and beginnings, the quiet hours after loss before renewal. These are the spaces many people fear, the not knowing, the waiting, the in-between. But in truth, they are sacred. They are the breath of life itself. When you learn to sit with the stillness, not to rush it, not to resist it, you begin to trust it. You begin to see that every pause holds wisdom, that every gap is part of a greater rhythm, that even in the waiting, life is unfolding. You don't need to chase the next breath. It will come. You don't need to fear the pause. It is here to teach you. In fact, the more you soften into these moments, the more alive you become. Not in movement, but in awareness, in presence, in peace. And so, tonight, as you rest, let your breath guide you to these sacred pauses. Feel the inhale rise, feel the space before release, feel the exhale fall, and feel the stillness before the next inhale. Let these moments be your refuge. Let them be enough. Because in the stillness between breaths, you are not doing, you are not striving, you are simply being, and that too is life. In the chapter ahead, we will explore how this rhythm continues even while you sleep, how the breath keeps its quiet vigil through dreams and darkness, carrying you gently through the night. As you drift into sleep, your breath does not abandon you. It softens, yes, it slows, certainly, but it remains faithful and quiet, carrying you deeper into the night, while your thoughts unravel into dreams and your muscles surrender to rest. Your breath becomes your guide through sleep's winding corridors. The breath you take while sleeping is not the same breath you take while awake. During waking hours, your breath dances with your emotions. It rises with stress, quickens with excitement, falters with fear, but in sleep it becomes steadier, more detached from your conscious whims. It follows the rhythm of your deeper needs, not your fleeting thoughts. As you cross the threshold from wakefulness to slumber, your brain waves slow, the bustling chatter of daytime consciousness fades, and a new orchestra begins to play, a slower, dreamlike symphony. Your breathing follows suit. It moves from the high chest to the low belly. Shallow inhales become deep, unhurried waves. The rhythm stretches out like the arms of someone sinking into warm water. This change is not random, it is guided by your brainstem, the quiet keeper of involuntary life. Deep in your medulla oblongata lies the respiratory control center, a set of neurons that continue to pace your breathing even while your higher mind sleeps. These neurons measure carbon dioxide levels in your blood and gently adjust the rate and depth of each breath to maintain balance. When you enter non-REM sleep, especially the deepest stages known as slow wave sleep, your breathing becomes slow and regular. It is a pattern of restfulness. Your body releases growth hormone, repairs tissue, restores energy, and your breath, slow and rhythmic, is part of that healing. But sleep is not a single state. It is a cycle, and as you transition from deep sleep into REM, rapid eye movement sleep, everything shifts again. REM is the stage where dreams bloom, where your brain becomes almost as active as it is during wakefulness. Your eyes dart beneath closed lids, your heart rate changes, and so does your breath. During REM, your breathing can become irregular. It may quicken as dreams become vivid. It may pause momentarily, especially if emotions in the dream are strong. You might sigh, gasp, or even speak. This variability is normal. It mirrors the intensity of what your dreaming mind is experiencing. And yet, even when erratic, your breath protects you. It ensures that oxygen continues to reach your brain and tissues, adjusting subtly to your body's needs in each phase of sleep. It is your constant companion in the night, never resting, even when you do. In disorders like sleep apnea, this rhythm is disrupted. Apnea, meaning no breath, occurs when the airway temporarily collapses during sleep, stopping airflow. The body, sensing the drop in oxygen, jolts awake just enough to reopen the airway. This can happen dozens or even hundreds of times each night, fragmenting sleep and preventing deep rest. Often people with sleep apnea are unaware of these mini awakenings, but feel the effects: morning headaches, foggy minds, heavy fatigue. Such disruptions remind us just how delicate and vital the breath's role in sleep truly is. Without it flowing smoothly, sleep loses its restorative power. With it, the night becomes a sanctuary. For centuries, poets and mystics have described sleep as a surrender, a letting go, and breath is what carries us into that surrender. Inhale, release. Inhale, release. Like a lullaby, like waves on a moonlit shore. This is the rhythm of falling, of floating, of forgetting the sharp edges of the day. In many spiritual traditions, the breath is seen as a bridge between the waking and the dreaming world. In some, it is believed that the soul rides the breath into dreams. or that the breath itself is the soul's song as it travels through the night. Whether literal or poetic, there is something undeniably sacred about this nightly ritual of soft breathing and soft becoming. Even your dreams may be influenced by your breath. Research suggests that breath and emotion are closely linked, even in sleep. A deep sigh in REM might signal a stressful dream. A slow, even breath might accompany a scene of calm or joy. Some lucid dreamers, those who become aware that they are dreaming, practice breathwork within their dreams, using awareness of their breath to stabilize the dreamscape or guide its course. But even without lucidity, your body remembers what peace feels like. If you fall asleep with slow, intentional breathing, your nervous system remains in a calmer state for longer. This is why bedtime breathing practices are so effective, why deep inhales and slow exhales before sleep can help quiet the mind and prepare the body for rest. There's a special beauty in realizing that, while your conscious mind slumbers, your breath keeps a quiet watch. It monitors your body's chemistry, it follows your brain's shifting states, it drifts through dreams, and when the night is done, it gently nudges you toward morning. When you begin to wake, before your eyes open, before your limbs stretch, it is the breath that stirs first. A deep inhale, a gentle exhale, a soft reminder that you are here again, held by the same rhythm that carried you through the dark. As you begin to notice this more, you may also begin to cherish the breath in new ways, not just as a function, but as a friend, not just as biology, but as presence. Each breath you take while sleeping is like a whisper from your body to your soul. Rest, heal, drift. I will carry you. Tonight, as you lie down and close your eyes, try to notice the rhythm of your breathing. Don't try to change it, just feel it. The coolness of the inhale, the warmth of the exhale, the stillness between. Let it carry you like a gentle river into dreams. Let it sing to you as you sleep. And remember, no matter how deep the night becomes, your breath will be there soft, faithful, and true. In the next chapter, we'll follow the breath not through a single night, but across a lifetime, exploring how breathing changes as we grow, age, and move through the seasons of our lives. From your very first cry to your final sigh, breath is your most enduring companion. It begins before you speak, before you even know what the world is, and it stays with you through every phase of life, adapting quietly as you grow, change, and age. Each inhale and exhale marks not just survival but transformation, a record of your journey through time. The story of breath begins before birth. Inside the womb, your lungs are not yet open to the air. They are filled with fluid, folded tightly like wings waiting for their first flight. Oxygen comes to you through the umbilical cord, your mother's breath shared across blood. Your own lungs are still rehearsing, moving in slow rhythmic contractions as if dreaming of the world to come. And then, birth. That first gasp. It is a moment of biological poetry. Your lungs, sensing a drop in temperature and pressure, spring into action. Air rushes in for the first time. The soft tissue expands. Alveoli blossom open like tiny flowers, and suddenly you are breathing. You are here. You are alive. That cry is more than sound. It is the opening chord of a lifelong symphony. As a newborn, your breathing is rapid and irregular. Tiny lungs, high metabolic demands, and a developing nervous system create a rhythm that is spontaneous, sometimes erratic, but it's also incredibly adaptive. Babies are often described as belly breathers, their diaphragms rising and falling with each tiny sigh. There is no tension in it, just the purity of breath doing what it must. As you grow into childhood, breath stabilizes. It slows, deepens, finds rhythm. Children breathe with wonder. They laugh with full-body joy, cry with sobs that take their breath away, and run until their lungs can't keep up. Their breathing reflects the rawness of experience, untouched by self-consciousness or control. A child gasps at the sight of a butterfly. A toddler sighs into their mother's shoulder. Each breath is still discovery. By adolescence, the body changes dramatically. The lungs grow larger, the rib cage expands, and hormonal shifts begin to affect the nervous system. Breathing, once unconscious and free, can now be influenced by emotion, identity, and stress. Teenagers may hold their breath during moments of fear, shame, or love. They might use breath to calm themselves before a test or shout it out during a game. The breath becomes a bridge between the inner and outer world, between thought and expression. In early adulthood, breath is both stable and versatile. It adapts to ambition, effort, creativity. Whether you're speaking in public, singing, exercising, or sitting in silence, your breath is always adjusting. In these years, many people begin to lose touch with the natural breath they knew in childhood. The pressures of life, work, schedules, responsibility can tighten the breath. It becomes shallow, hurried, reactive, but it is still there waiting, willing to return to its deeper rhythm when invited. Through adulthood, breath becomes deeply entangled with emotion. Stress and anxiety quicken it. Grief interrupts it. Joy opens it wide. And through all of this, your breath can be a tool not just for survival, but for self-awareness. Many find practices like yoga or meditation in these years, rediscovering the breath as something sacred. It becomes a friend again, a teacher, a compass pointing inward. Pregnancy, too, brings a new relationship to breath. As the body expands to hold new life, the diaphragm must work harder. Breath becomes both a physical and emotional anchor. Expectant mothers often use breathing techniques to manage labor pain, and the breath becomes something to focus on, something to trust in during the most intense moments of life's creation. Then comes midlife and the gentle approach of aging. Breath begins to shift again. Lung tissue loses elasticity. The chest wall becomes stiffer. Breathing may require more effort. Some notice a reduction in lung capacity. Not dramatic at first, but gradual. It's a quiet recalibration. But with awareness, breath can remain expansive. Practices like walking, singing, and deep breathing exercises help maintain the flexibility and vitality of the respiratory system well into old age. As the body continues to age, breathing slows. It becomes more delicate, more deliberate. The breaths may be fewer, but each one feels more significant. Elders often speak more slowly, with longer pauses between thoughts, not just from reflection, but because the breath itself is quieter now. These pauses are not empty. They are full of experience, of memory, of presence. There's a quiet beauty in watching an older person breathe, a softness, a rhythm that doesn't rush. It's the rhythm of a life lived with all its sorrows and joys, of a body that knows what it means to carry on. Many elders learn to sit with their breath, to listen to it. In those slow inhales and exhales, they find comfort, clarity, even reverence. And finally, there comes the last breath. It may come slowly, gently, like a tide retreating, or suddenly a release into something unknown. It is often said that the first breath and the last are the only ones that matter, and that everything in between is the unfolding of life. But perhaps every breath matters. Perhaps each one is a chapter in the story, each inhale a new beginning, each exhale a letting go. Across the span of life, breath is both a mirror and a message. It reflects where you are, how you feel, who you are becoming. It carries within it the memory of your first gasp, the song of your childhood, the sighs of love and loss, the whispers of age. It is always with you, changing, adapting, enduring. To breathe is to belong to time, to life, and in the next chapter we will explore that final mysterious exhale. What happens when breath fades and how the science of dying can teach us something beautiful about life itself. So take a moment, notice your breath right now. Not just the air, but the feeling, the shape, the history it carries. You are breathing through every age you've ever been, and that is a quiet miracle. There is a moment in every life when the breath lets go. It is the final act of the body, the closing note in a lifelong song of inhales and exhales. The last breath doesn't shout, it doesn't rush. Often it simply fades like a candle gently going out, leaving behind a stillness more profound than silence. But what exactly happens in that moment? What is the story of the final breath? To understand this sacred transition, we begin not with death, but with life winding down. As the body enters its final phase, whether through age, illness, or other natural ends, it begins to conserve energy. The systems that once worked with seamless precision start to slow, one by one. The heart may beat irregularly, the blood pressure drops, organs, including the lungs, begin to function less efficiently. And yet in all of this, the breath remains, sometimes for hours, sometimes for days. Breath is one of the last systems to stop. In many ways, it's the body's most loyal rhythm. Even when all else begins to retreat, the breath stays soft, quiet, but present. It adapts, it carries the person gently forward, and in its slowing, it speaks a language of peace. Near the end, the pattern of breathing changes. You may have heard of Chine-Stokes respiration, a distinct rhythm that sometimes appears as life draws to a close. The breath comes in waves, deep, then shallow, then a pause. It may sound unsettling to those nearby, but it is not painful. It is the brain and body adjusting to shifting carbon dioxide and oxygen levels, entering a kind of natural rhythm of release. There's another term, agonal breathing, that refers to gasping, reflexive breaths that may happen close to death. These too are not signs of distress, but of the body trying to complete its work. In hospice and palliative care, caregivers are trained to recognize these patterns, to explain them to loved ones, to reassure them that what sounds dramatic is often just the body's final instinctual movement. In truth, most people do not die with a dramatic exhale. Many simply fall asleep. Their breath grows lighter, more infrequent, until eventually there is no more breath. The diaphragm, the muscles, the lungs, all rest. The body is not fighting, it is returning. Science tells us that death is not one single moment, but a process. Even after the final breath, cells may continue to function briefly. The brain's electrical activity may flicker. Some researchers believe there's a brief window of awareness, even if just for seconds after breathing stops. This is part of the mystery, and it is treated with reverence. Spiritually, across cultures, the final breath is significant. In many traditions, it is believed to be the moment when the soul leaves the body. In Buddhism, great care is taken not to disturb the body after death, as breath is seen as the bridge between physical life and the transition to what comes next. In Christianity, the word spirit comes from spiritus, Latin for breath. In Hinduism and many indigenous cultures, the breath is sacred, a divine gift that returns to the universe once its journey is complete. But regardless of belief, one thing is constant. The final breath is a profound moment of stillness. It invites reflection, reverence, and often quiet gratitude. For the person dying, breath often becomes the anchor of comfort. In hospice settings, caregivers help patients find positions that make breathing easier, propping them up gently, soothing dry mouths, humidifying the air. Morphine may be given to ease laboured breathing, but more often than not it's the presence of loved ones, the soft rhythm of familiar voices, and a peaceful environment that allow breath to slow naturally. Family members often recall holding a loved one's hand, listening for each inhale, waiting during the quiet pauses, wondering if it was the last, and then another breath comes, soft and small, and then another pause, until eventually there is no breath, just the quiet presence of a life that was. That moment is not empty, it is full of memory, love, mystery. The room seems to shift, time feels suspended, breath, which was once taken for granted, is now deeply felt in its absence. Some describe it as peaceful, others as luminous, a profound release. Whatever the words used, the moment of the last breath carries weight, not in sadness alone, but in recognition of all that came before it. Every breath leading up to that one carried laughter, words, emotions, movement. The last breath is simply the closing chapter, not an end of meaning, but the completion of a cycle. And even after that breath has gone, the story of breath continues. The breath of the person who passed remains in the memories of those they touched, their scent, their laughter, the way they sighed when happy or tired. Their breath has entered rooms, warmed spaces, spoken love. It has shaped the air we breathe now. And physically, that final exhale, rich in carbon dioxide, feeds plants and trees. It re-enters the Earth's cycles, contributing to the ecosystem. Breath, like water, is never wasted. It moves, transforms, and continues its journey. In this way, death is not the end of breath, but its evolution. And perhaps there is something comforting in that even as one breath stops, others continue, that we are all always part of one great respiratory rhythm, the atmosphere that holds us, the air that cycles endlessly between us all. So take a moment now and breathe. Think of someone you have loved and lost. Breathe in memory, breathe out gratitude. Know that in this simple act you are continuing the cycle, and as we leave this chapter we look not just at the end, but at how breath connects all of us. In the next chapter, we explore how the choices we make, what we burn, build, and breathe, shape the air we share across the planet. Because while one breath may end, the world breathes on. The breath you just took may have brushed the treetops of the Amazon, spiraled through the Himalayas, or hovered above the oceans before entering your lungs. It may have once filled the chest of someone halfway across the planet. Perhaps it passed through the gills of a whale, the wings of a bee, or the quiet corridors of a rainforest before it found you. We don't breathe in isolation. Our breath is part of a global cycle, an atmospheric symphony that connects every living being. Each inhale you take draws from the same shared reservoir of air that encircles the Earth, changing, circulating, and responding to what we do on the ground. And with every exhale, you contribute to that system in return. In essence, breath is planetary. This shared air is called the atmosphere, a thin veil of gases, mostly nitrogen and oxygen, that surrounds Earth like an invisible ocean. If the Earth were a basketball, the atmosphere would be thinner than a sheet of plastic wrap around it. Yet it is this fragile layer that sustains all life, and it is always moving. Air doesn't stay still. It drifts and swirls, rises and sinks. Wind patterns and jet streams carry molecules across continents and oceans. A puff of smoke in Siberia can reach the western United States. A wildfire in Australia can send particles across the Pacific. Dust from the Sahara can fertilize the Amazon rainforest. This means the decisions we make, what we burn, what we build, how we live, affect not only our local air, but the breath of distant places. When coal is burned in one country, its particles can cross borders. When forests are cleared, carbon dioxide is released into the air, heating the planet and shifting the balance for everyone. Even seemingly small actions, driving a car, lighting a fire, or using electricity, carry ripple effects into the global atmosphere. Take carbon dioxide CO2 for instance. This colourless, odourless gas is a natural part of the breath we exhale. But as we've added billions of tons of CO2 through industry, transportation and deforestation, the balance has tipped. More carbon in the air means more heat trapped near the Earth's surface, warming oceans, melting ice, and altering climate patterns that influence where and how we can breathe. Climate change is, in many ways, a story of disrupted breath. Rising temperatures lead to more wildfires, which pump soot and smoke into the sky. That smoke irritates lungs, especially in children, the elderly, and those with asthma. Droughts dry out vegetation, increasing dust. Higher heat causes chemical reactions in the air that worsen ozone pollution, making it harder to breathe, especially in cities. In coastal areas, rising sea levels threaten to displace millions, forcing entire populations to seek cleaner, safer places to breathe. In Arctic regions, as permafrost thaws, ancient methane, a powerful greenhouse gas, is released, accelerating warming further. And in the oceans, warming waters reduce the oxygen levels available for marine life, changing the breath of the sea. But the story is not only one of harm, it is also one of awareness and interdependence. When we realize that breath is shared, we begin to act differently. We see that protecting air is not just about regulations or numbers. It's about caring for the invisible thread that binds us to the world. It's about safeguarding the rhythm of breathing for future generations. Communities around the globe are waking up to this. In cities, movements are growing to reduce emissions, plant more trees, and design public spaces that invite clean air. People are turning to renewable energy, electric transportation, and sustainable farming, not just for the planet but for the breath of their children. Scientists, engineers, and activists are collaborating across borders to protect our shared sky. And individuals like you can play a role too. Every time you choose to walk instead of drive, you reduce the amount of pollutants released into the air. Every time you support clean energy, you contribute to a future where breath is not compromised by fossil fuels. Every time you plant a tree or protect green spaces, you create tiny lungs for the earth. Even how you heat your home, cook your meals, or choose your products impacts the air. Wood stoves, gas stoves, aerosol sprays, all affect the air you and others breathe. Indoor air quality matters just as much as outdoor. Choosing natural cleaners, ventilating spaces, and reducing unnecessary pollutants inside your home is a gift to your lungs and those of your loved ones. And beyond the physical, there is an emotional breath we share. A global anxiety, a collective sigh, a yearning for stillness in a world that often moves too fast. In times of collective stress, wars, disasters, pandemics, our breath becomes shallow. We hold it, we brace, and in healing we exhale together. Breath has been at the centre of social movements. "I can't breathe" has echoed through protests, drawing attention to injustice and the deep need for dignity and safety in every breath. Air is a right, and like all rights, it must be defended. But let us return to something quieter now. Picture a rainforest at dawn. Mist rises between the trees, leaves unfurl, birds begin to stir. Each plant, large and small, begins the day's work of breathing, exhaling oxygen into the world. Thousands of miles away, in a desert, a cactus slowly releases breath into the cooler night air. Across the ocean, plankton near the surface shimmer with morning light, turning sunlight into oxygen. And somewhere, a child wakes and inhales the morning, breathing the breath of forests, oceans, deserts, and distant winds. That is the beauty of the global breath. It unites us. We breathe not just air, but connection. We inhale not just oxygen, but memory. Molecules that have passed through the lungs of ancestors, the forests of ancient times, the ruins of cities, and the open mouths of laughing children. We are, in essence, part of a living atmosphere, a breathing planet. And so, with every breath, we are given a choice: to take with awareness, to give with care, to protect what is unseen, to cherish what connects us all. Because even though breath is invisible, its effects are everywhere. It shapes life, it records our presence, and it reflects who we are, not only as individuals but as a species. As we continue our journey into breath, we'll now turn inward again toward the delicate rhythm that unites breath with heartbeat. The next chapter explores this silent symphony, the pulse and breath dancing in harmony, moment by moment, in the quiet music of life. Beneath the quiet of your breath, there is a second rhythm, steady, persistent, and ancient. It is the beating of your heart. Together, breath and heartbeat form the most essential duet of your life. They are partners in a slow, sacred dance that has been unfolding since before you were born. This chapter is about their connection, not just biologically but emotionally, rhythmically, and even spiritually. It is about how the breath you take and the pulse that follows are bound in a living symphony that sustains your every moment. Place your hand over your chest or your wrist or your neck. Feel it, the soft thump, the steady beat. It's almost always in the background, unnoticed. But right now, let yourself listen to it. Let it come forward in your awareness. That heartbeat is your drum, and with every inhale and exhale, your breath is its melody. Your body contains two rhythms, one driven by the lungs, the other by the heart, but they are not independent, they are synchronized. In fact, every time you breathe in, your heart speeds up slightly, and every time you breathe out, it slows down. This dance is called respiratory sinus arrhythmia, a beautiful term that simply means your heart and lungs are in conversation. Why does this happen? It's the result of your autonomic nervous system, the system that runs automatically in the background. When you inhale, your sympathetic nervous system gently nudges your heart to beat faster. When you exhale, the parasympathetic system encourages it to slow down. It's a push and pull, a balance between energy and rest, between alertness and calm. This rhythm isn't just mechanical, it's emotional. Think of how your breath changes when you're scared, fast, shallow, sharp, your heart races, or how it feels when you're in love, soft, full, warm, with your pulse gently echoing in your chest, or when you cry, your breath hitching, your heartbeat pounding. These two systems reflect your inner world. They don't just keep you alive, they tell your story in every moment. And when you bring awareness to your breath, something magical happens. You begin to shape the rhythm consciously. Inhale slowly now, feel your chest rise. Exhale gently, feel your heart slow. Do it again. Notice the space between, the calm between. With each mindful breath, you're guiding your heart into balance. You're shifting your nervous system toward rest, healing, and peace. This is the secret behind meditation, behind breathwork, behind the calming power of simply stopping and breathing. In hospitals and labs around the world, researchers have found that slowing the breath, especially making the exhale longer than the inhale, can bring down blood pressure, reduce stress hormones, and increase heart rate variability. That last one, heart rate variability, is a powerful marker of health. It reflects your body's ability to adapt, to flex, to recover, and it improves when you breathe slowly, with awareness. Your body is listening. Every breath you take sends a signal, safety or stress, and your heart responds accordingly, even in moments of deep emotion, grief, joy, longing. This rhythm offers comfort. Breath and pulse will hold you. They are the constants. No matter what else is happening, they are there, humming quietly beneath the surface. Let's go deeper into the science now. Your breath brings in oxygen. That oxygen is picked up by hemoglobin in red blood cells. The heart pumps those cells throughout your body. Every organ, every muscle, every cell receives oxygenated blood like a delivery service running 24/7. But it's not just delivery, it's also cleanup. As cells use oxygen to create energy, they produce carbon dioxide as waste. That CO2 is carried back to the lungs where it is exhaled. So breath is not just intake, it's exchange. The oxygen you breathe in is a gift from the outside world. The carbon dioxide you breathe out is your return offering, and the heart ensures the trade flows smoothly. In this way, the heart is like the breath's chariot, swift, loyal, constant. But there's more. Scientists have observed that this rhythm, the synchronization of breath and heart, can extend to others. When people sit together and breathe in unison, their heartbeats begin to mirror each other, in group meditation, in choir singing, in holding hands. Even in mother and infant, breath and heart synchronize. It is one of the earliest connections we form. This is the biology of bonding, of empathy, of being human. It is also why shared breath feels sacred, why chanting or praying or singing in groups creates a sense of unity, why watching someone breathe heavily in pain stirs your own breath to shift. Our rhythms are contagious. Our pulses are not entirely our own. This rhythmic interconnection is echoed in nature. The tide rolls in and out, an ocean's breath. The seasons come and go, a planet's breath. The moon's pull affects the waves, a heartbeat felt in water. The migration of birds, the bloom of flowers, the hush of forests, all follow rhythms. Breath is everywhere, pulse is everywhere, life is rhythm. And in your body that rhythm never stops. Even when you sleep, even when you dream, even when your mind drifts far away, your breath and heart carry on like trusted guardians at the gate. But what happens when this rhythm is disrupted? When we're anxious or sick, the rhythm can become erratic. Breath may become rapid, shallow, the heart might race or stutter. The two can fall out of sync. This is why practices like breathwork, yoga, or simply lying down with one hand on the chest and one on the belly can be powerful. They restore the rhythm. They remind the body how to sing its own lullaby. Because that's what this rhythm is, a lullaby. A quiet music that plays within you, soothing, steady, eternal. In this moment, you can choose to return to it, to listen to the song of breath and heartbeat, to let them guide you back into peace, to trust their rhythm as the foundation of your being. You are not separate from life. You are part of the rhythm. You are the rhythm. And as we move forward, we will explore how this rhythm can be shaped with intention, how breath is not just automatic but also conscious. In the next chapter, we'll dive into the world of mindful breathing, how ancient traditions and modern science both celebrate the power of breath to heal, focus, and awaken. But for now, rest in the gentle music of your body. Inhale, exhale, heartbeat. You are here, you are alive, and life is singing through you. You are breathing, but now you are aware of it. That shift, subtle as it seems, marks the beginning of something ancient and powerful. Breathing is one of the only bodily functions that can happen both automatically and intentionally. You can let it happen, or you can choose it, and that choice opens the door to transformation, not just in your body but in your mind, your emotions, and your experience of life itself. Across thousands of years and countless cultures, conscious breathing has been a tool for clarity, peace, and connection. It shows up in meditation, in yoga, in prayer, in martial arts. It's in the whispered chants of monks, the steady rhythm of runners, the deep inhales before singers reach for the highest note. Breath has always been more than survival. It is awareness, discipline, and presence. Let's begin with the science, quiet and profound. When you become aware of your breath and begin to regulate it, slowing it down, deepening it, you engage the parasympathetic nervous system. This is the body's rest and digest mode. Your heart rate lowers, blood pressure drops, muscles relax, inflammatory markers decline, cortisol, the stress hormone, begins to quiet. All of this from simply slowing your breath. It doesn't take hours. In fact, within just a few minutes of focused breathing, your body starts to shift. That's why mindfulness experts often begin with breath awareness. It's like finding a handle on the present moment, a way back into the body when the mind is running far ahead. Try it now. Inhale gently through the nose for a count of 4. Hold for 2. Exhale slowly through the mouth for a count of 6. Pause for 2. Repeat. You might feel a softening in your chest, a loosening in your thoughts. You're not forcing anything. You're just inviting the body to remember what it already knows, how to relax, how to reset, how to be here. This pattern, longer exhales than inhales, sends the clearest signal of calm to the nervous system. It tells the heart, you are safe. It tells the mind, you can let go. Over time, regular practice of conscious breathing can improve sleep, reduce anxiety, and even boost focus and creativity. But conscious breathing is not just about relaxation. It can also be energizing, awakening. In yogic traditions, the practice of pranayama, meaning breath control or life force extension, involves many forms of breathing. Some are slow and cooling, like nadi shodhana, alternate nostril breathing, used to calm the mind and balance the body. Others, like kapalabhati, shining skull breath, are sharp and fast, designed to stimulate energy and clarity. These practices recognize breath as a tool for shifting states of consciousness, not just chemically through oxygen and carbon dioxide, but energetically through rhythm, attention, and flow. In martial arts, breathing is tied to strength and control. A sudden exhale accompanies a punch or block, focusing energy and tightening the core. In singing and wind instruments, breath becomes sound. It carries emotion. It fills space. In prayer, breath is a rhythm of reverence. It slows the mind, creating silence between thoughts. Even in grief, breath is sacred. The way we sob, gasp, or sigh says what words cannot. All of these are forms of conscious breath, and they are all reminders that something so simple can be deeply expressive. There's also the link between breath and thought. When the breath is shallow, fast, or erratic, the mind often mirrors it, becoming scattered, reactive, or tense. But when breath is slow and steady, thoughts tend to soften, concentration deepens. This is why many meditation traditions use breath as an anchor. It's always there. It's always now. Breath pulls you out of past regrets and future worries. It says, this moment is real. This body is here. This breath is enough. And then there's the connection between breath and emotion. Sometimes we don't realize how we feel until we notice how we're breathing. A clenched chest might reveal hidden stress. A held breath might uncover fear. A sudden sigh might release grief. By tuning into breath, we tune into ourselves. That's the beauty of it. Conscious breathing isn't about controlling everything. It's about becoming aware of what's already happening and gently guiding it toward balance. Let's return to science for a moment. Studies show that regular breath-focused meditation can rewire the brain. Areas associated with attention, compassion, and self-awareness grow more active. The amygdala, a center for fear and reactivity, becomes less dominant. Even immune function improves. And perhaps most fascinating of all, breath may influence brainwaves. Slow rhythmic breathing can encourage theta and alpha brainwave states associated with relaxation, creativity, and deep meditation. Some believe this is why breath-based practices feel like a gateway to altered states. They don't add anything foreign, they simply quiet the noise, revealing what's always been beneath. So how do you begin? You don't need a cushion, a candle, or a mountaintop retreat. You just need a moment. Sit or lie down. Feel the breath as it enters and leaves the body. Notice its temperature, its pace, its path. Begin to shape it, gently, kindly. Try box breathing. Inhale 4, hold 4, exhale 4, hold 4, Repeat. Try ocean breath, a soft whispering exhale, like waves on the shore. Try counting breaths. Inhale 1, exhale 2, up to 10, and begin again. There's no single right way, only what helps you return. And if your mind wanders, that's okay. Each return to breath is a victory, a reminder, a soft step toward presence. One of the most beautiful things about conscious breathing is that it's free, it's always available. It doesn't require perfection, belief, or even experience. It only asks that you notice, that you care enough to pause. Many people discover breath awareness during moments of crisis. A panic attack, a sleepless night, a grief too heavy for words. In those moments, breath becomes a lifeline, and over time it becomes a practice, not just of survival, but of intimacy with life itself. There's something else. When you breathe with awareness, you begin to realize how connected you are to everything else that breathes. The air that enters you has passed through trees, oceans, other people. Each breath is part of a great exchange, a rhythm that includes all life. It humbles and elevates all at once. In this way, conscious breathing becomes a kind of gratitude. A thank you for being here, a yes to this moment, a quiet celebration of life moving through you. So as you settle into sleep or stillness or simply your next breath, remember you are never far from peace. It is as close as your breath, and that breath, when taken consciously, has the power to change everything. In our next chapter, we will explore the inner depths of this breath, the metaphor within the inhale, the memory within the exhale, the part of you that breathes not just air but meaning. But for now, rest in the miracle of this breath, this heartbeat, this moment. You are here, you are breathing, and that is more than enough. What is a breath, really? A simple exchange of gases? A muscle contraction? A reflex? Or is it something more, something layered with meaning, memory, and mystery? You've followed breath through your body, through lungs and blood, through trees and tides. You've seen how it carries oxygen, calms the mind, and ties you gently to the world around you. But now, we slow down even further. We look inward, not just to breath as biology, but to breath as identity. There is a breath beneath the breath, the one that exists even when you forget to notice it, the one that never stops, the one that continues through sleep, through silence, through sadness. This breath is more than survival. It is your presence. It is the rhythm of your being. Think about the first breath you ever took. A gasp, an inhale. The moment you entered this world, breath arrived with you. The air was cold, your lungs new, the world bright and wide. That first breath was more than biology. It was a beginning, and from that moment forward, breath has stayed with you through everything. Joy, fear, laughter, loss. It has kept time for you, even when you were unaware. And one day, far ahead, there will be a final exhale, a closing, a return. Between those two moments, your life unfolds, breath after breath, pause after pause. But have you ever wondered what your breath remembers? Breath is intimately tied to memory. The way your breath caught in a moment of awe, the sharp exhale of surprise, the gentle sigh after letting go. These moments are stored not just in your mind, but in your body. Breath is the messenger between your inner world and outer experience. It carries emotional truth. There are breaths that hold the scent of your childhood, the dusty sunlit air of an old bedroom, the salty breeze of a family trip to the sea. There are breaths that carry music, the way a familiar song once filled your chest with something you couldn't name. Breathing connects you not only to life, but to your story. In spiritual traditions around the world, breath is often equated with soul or life force. In Hebrew, the word ruach means both breath and spirit. In Sanskrit, prana is both the breath and the vital energy that animates all living things. In Greek, pneuma means wind, breath, and soul. And in many indigenous cultures, breath is seen as sacred, a thread between the individual and the earth, between body and cosmos. Why does breath hold this power? Because it is invisible, yet felt, internal, yet shared, vital, yet quiet. Breath is the bridge between seen and unseen, between the world of matter and the world of meaning. Even in science, we are only beginning to understand breath's deeper effects. Studies suggest that slow rhythmic breathing may influence not only brain waves but also states of consciousness, offering glimpses into what some call the observer self, the part of you that watches without judgment. When you follow your breath, you often find a stillness underneath everything, a quiet awareness that feels ancient and vast. And in that stillness, you might feel something else, something hard to describe but deeply familiar, a sense that who you are is more than your thoughts, more than your body, more than your roles, that within the breath lives a self that doesn't need to be earned, proved, or polished, just felt. Some call this the essence of meditation, others call it presence. You don't need a label, all you need is the breath, and a willingness to listen. In this way, breath becomes more than air. It becomes a teacher. It shows you how to return, how to begin again. No matter how scattered your thoughts, how tired your heart, how far you've wandered, breath is there, ready to bring you home. This is the breath within the breath. It is the pause that makes the rhythm, the silence that frames the sound, the moment between the inhale and the exhale that holds no demand, only being. When you connect with this space, your entire perspective can shift. You are no longer chasing peace. You are resting in it. You are no longer reaching for meaning. You are breathing it. Let's try something gentle. Close your eyes or soften your gaze. Let the breath settle into its natural rhythm. Don't control it, just follow it. Notice the inhale. Feel the air enter the body. Then notice the exhale. Feel it leave. Now, bring your awareness to the space between those breaths. The little pause, the quiet moment that asks nothing of you. That's it. That is where presence lives. This simple awareness can carry you through anxiety, distraction, even pain. You don't need to escape your reality. You just need to arrive in it, one breath at a time. The breath within the breath is not a thing to be grasped. It is a place to rest, a truth to remember, a rhythm you already know. And as you settle into this awareness, you begin to see how breath mirrors life itself. Inhale, arrival, creation, expansion. Exhale, release, surrender, letting go, pause, integration, reflection, stillness. This rhythm is everywhere, in the tides, in the seasons, in the heart's beat, in the moon's phases, in the way stories unfold, love deepens, and understanding dawns. Breathing teaches us to trust this rhythm, to not rush the inhale or fear the exhale, to find beauty in both. And as you breathe, you are reminded that you are part of something vast. The same air that moves through you moves through everyone. Through forests and rivers, cities and deserts, children and elders, strangers and lovers, it is the great connector, the shared invisible thread. When we breathe consciously, we not only feel ourselves more deeply, we feel each other. This is perhaps the greatest gift of the breath within the breath, connection, to body, to presence, to others, to everything. So the next time you find yourself overwhelmed, untethered or unsure, return to breath, not to fix, but to feel, not to do, but to be. Let your breath be your compass. Let it be your ground. Let it be the quiet voice that says, you are here. You are enough. You are alive. In our final chapter, we will return full circle to that first inhale and the way it still echoes in every breath you take. We will honour the story of breath in its entirety, not as a single event, but as a journey, a rhythm, a life. But for now, rest in this breath, the one that asks nothing, yet gives everything. The breath within the breath, your truest home. From the very beginning, this story has been carried not on paper or through sound waves, but on breath. You began with an inhale, a single invisible moment of presence, and now, gently, you arrive at the return, not the end, but a quiet circle closing. The inhale meets itself again, in stillness, in understanding, in you. By now you've wandered deep into the pathways of breath, through the gates of air and the garden of the lungs, through vessels and neurons, through sleep and memory, emotion and stillness. You've watched a single breath travel from the wind outside your window to the very core of your brain. You've seen how it nourishes life, how it connects hearts, how it silently carries both science and soul. And now here, in this moment, all that knowledge settles, not as noise, but as calm knowing. You don't need to hold it in your mind, your body already remembers. There is something poetic in the shape of breathing. Not just the rise and fall, but the rhythm of it all. It doesn't race, it doesn't cling. It opens and lets go. Inhale, exhale, repeat. You can feel that rhythm in the ocean, in the stars, in the hush of leaves at dusk. You can feel it in the pulse of the planet and the quiet sighs of strangers walking home. Breath is what we all share, whether we realize it or not. It crosses borders, it lives in laughter, in grief, in silence, in song. The same air that leaves your lungs enters another life moments later. What else in the world is so constant, so invisible, and so intimate? And still, we forget. We forget to notice it. We forget to feel it. But breath never leaves us. Even in our forgetting, it continues. Even in sleep, even in sorrow, even in the depths of unawareness, breath remains, loyal, quiet, unconditionally present. And perhaps that is the point, that we don't need to chase awareness or strive to capture truth. We only need to remember what's already here, already moving, already carrying us. And when we remember, we return not just to breath, but to ourselves. The final chapter is not a conclusion, it is a return, a remembering of where you've always been, a body gently rising and falling, part of something immeasurably larger and infinitely close. When you inhale now, perhaps you feel it differently, not as something automatic or functional, but as something deeply alive, as a whisper of the world entering you, as a thread tying you to the cosmos, to the trees, to the people who've come before you, and those who will breathe long after you're gone. Breath holds all of time. The air you just inhaled may have been exhaled by a bird in the Amazon, or a child in Tibet, or a wave of wind off the Arctic. You are not separate. You are part of the atmosphere. You are an ongoing expression of nature. Each breath is not only yours, but the planet's. The inhale is shared. The exhale is shared. It's always been like this, though we rarely pause long enough to sense the miracle in it. And now that you have paused, that you followed one breath from sky to cell to soul, what remains? Stillness, connection, gratitude, a soft awareness that you are both small and infinite, both fragile and vital, both alone and never truly alone. In your quietest moments, breath will always bring you back, not just to the now, but to a deeper now, the kind of now that includes memory and imagination, science and spirit, the kind of now where you remember that life itself isn't something to be figured out but felt, and nothing helps you feel more than breath. You may never know what breath truly is. Perhaps it's more than oxygen and carbon dioxide. Perhaps it's more than survival. Perhaps it's the closest thing we have to a living metaphor, for movement, for change, for trust, for presence. It's here, then gone, then here again, like the tide, like thought, like love. And so this story does not end, because breath does not end. It continues flowing, changing, moving between you and the world. It will be with you as you sleep, as you wake, as you walk down streets filled with the breath of others. It will guide you through laughter and loss. It will keep you grounded when nothing else can. It will remind you that you belong. Let the inhale be your homecoming. Let the exhale be your offering. Let each breath be the thread that weaves your moments into meaning. Not by effort, but by allowing. Let breath be enough. Let breath be everything. And as your body softens into sleep, know this. You have not only listened to a story, you have breathed it. You are not only a listener, you are the breath itself, rising, falling, returning. So return now, with no need for questions or answers. Only this breath, only this moment, only this soft, endless inhale, beginning again,